I'm the Midnight Storyteller, here to keep you company through the quiet hours. Many of you listen to these stories to fall asleep, and I'm honored to guide you there. And before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep the stories alive. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it on your side of the night? Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. Evan Thornton's shoes crunched against the gravel driveway as he stepped out of his car, staring up at the mansion that was now his. It loomed against the dull afternoon sky, every window black and empty. It should have been draped in decay, abandoned for years. But the house stood pristine, the paint untouched, the gardens manicured. That was the first wrong thing. The second was the smell. Not rot, not dust, just the faintest scent of something lived in. He checked his phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, just a hollow silence pressing against his ears as he approached the front door. The brass knob turned too easily. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was heavy. The house exhaled a slow, measured breath of stillness. It had been expecting him. At first, Evan dismissed the oddities. A chair slightly out of place. A book he swore he left closed, now lying open. Things people misremember all the time. Then on the second night, he noticed the portrait. It hung in the study, a man standing on the mansion's front steps, staring directly at the camera. The man was him. Same face, same sharp jawline. The only difference was the age. The man in the portrait was at least 20 years older. His stomach twisted. Maybe it was some distant resemblance, some old family member he'd never met. He ran his fingers over the brass nameplate beneath the painting, brushing off dust. There was no name, just a date. 1922. The next morning, Evan drove into town. It was small, the kind of place that had only one diner and no reason to be on a map. He sat at the counter, pushing his coffee back and forth between his hands, trying to find the words. The old man behind the counter spoke first. "Been a while since we've seen you, Mr. Thornton." Evan's grip tightened on the mug. "I've never been here before." The old man chuckled. "That's a good one. Always were a kidder." Evan forced a smile, trying to ignore the way his skin crawled. "Listen," he said carefully, "I just inherited the Thornton estate. My uncle." The old man's expression changed. A pause, a hesitation too long for comfort. "You don't got no uncle," he muttered. Evan's breath stilled. "What?" The man shook his head, suddenly uncomfortable, like he'd said something wrong. "That house, it's always been yours." Evan felt his chest constrict. "That's impossible." The old man didn't argue. He just slid the check across the counter and turned away. Back at the mansion, Evan paced the halls, trying to shake the feeling that was sinking in his gut like cold lead. The house had always been his. That was insane. He stopped in front of an old mirror near the staircase. He barely recognized himself. His face drawn, his eyes hollow. And then, his reflection blinked. A half second late, his blood turned to ice. He lifted a hand. His reflection followed, but a moment too slow. Evan's breath turned shallow. He backed away from the mirror, not daring to look at it again. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, he knew he had to leave. He grabbed his bag and headed for the front door, his heart pounding. The knob turned. The door opened to the same hallway he had just left. Evan's breath caught in his throat. Slowly, he turned around. The grand front entrance was behind him, exactly where it had been. But when he stepped toward it again and pushed, he was back in the hallway, his pulse hammered. No. He moved faster, throwing open another door. His bedroom. Another. The study. His hands trembled. He couldn't leave. The mansion had swallowed him whole. Panicked, he scoured the study for answers. His eyes landed on an old leather-bound journal sitting perfectly centered on the desk. It was his own handwriting. His stomach dropped as he flipped through the pages. Day 3. The house is wrong. My reflection lags. Day 6. The doors won't let me out. Day 12. The town calls me by another name. I don't know what it is, but I think I used to. Evan's hands trembled as he turned to the last entry. Day 27. I have always owned this house. I have always been here. I have always been me, and soon I won't be. The ink ended abruptly, the line trailing off into nothing. Evan turned the page. It was blank, waiting. A whisper rippled through the house, his name over and over. He turned. A man stood in the doorway. Evan stumbled back. The man was him, but older. The same face from the portrait, the same deep-set, knowing eyes. The older Evan tilted his head. His expression wasn't cruel. It wasn't kind either, just inevitable. Evan tried to run, but his feet wouldn't move. The house was closing in, breathing. The older Evan stepped forward, reaching out, and the world snapped black. Evan Thornton's shoes crunched against the gravel driveway. He stepped out of his car, staring up at the mansion that was now his. It loomed against the dull afternoon sky, every window black and empty. He didn't know why, but his chest felt tight, like he'd been here before, like he'd always been here. The cycle begins again. The end. The first night in Somagen Labs was silent. Not the kind of silence she was used to. The kind full of electric hums and distant sirens. The restless shuffling of her own exhausted body. This was absolute. Airless. Claire Mendez lay on her back, eyes open, waiting. The facility was cold, metallic, featureless. A place designed to erase identity just as sleep had erased her for years. She was willing to be erased if it meant rest. Real rest, not the fractured half-sleep of her existence. She didn't dream. When she woke, her mind felt clear, her limbs weightless. For the first time in years, she had slept. But something was wrong. She found her journal open on the nightstand. A new entry in her own handwriting. Called Mom. She sounded worried. Claire hadn't spoken to her mother in weeks. The second night, Claire woke feeling even better, lighter, empty. The entry was longer now. Went outside today. The sky was wrong. Her throat went dry. She had been inside all day, isolated. She approached the nightstand cautiously, as if the journal might move, as if she might catch her own hand writing it. She checked the CCTV footage from the facility. The timestamp showed missing time, 3 hours of pure blackness. Yet the final frame showed her asleep in bed, undisturbed. She swallowed hard. She told herself it was just exhaustion, just the treatment working through her system. Then she found her phone lying on the nightstand, a single outgoing call to her mother. Claire wasn't allowed a mirror, but the facility had reflective surfaces, windowed halls, polished tile. That's how she saw it on the fourth night. The thing standing at the foot of her bed, the outline of herself, dark and static, a shadow with 2 solid edges. Its head tilted slightly, as if it had been watching her for hours. Claire's breath hitched. She blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, she confronted Dr. Calloway. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "The program is working," he said stiffly, staring at his clipboard. "You're making great progress." Claire felt her pulse hammering against her ribs. "Then why am I losing time?" He didn't answer. answer. That night, she wedged a chair under the door handle, sat awake, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the darkness. At 3:07 a.m., her body moved without her consent. Her fingers reached toward the chair, legs unfolding smoothly from bed. She could feel it. Her limbs weren't hers. She was watching herself move. The breath left her lungs in a ragged sob. She forced herself to stay awake. Something inside her was trying to get out. The fifth night, she broke into Summon's restricted files. The hallways felt wrong, the lights humming just a fraction too long before dimming. In the records room, she found the past subjects. Every file was stamped, unrecovered. Claire's hands shook as she pulled up a video file. A woman sitting in the same sterile room, same sleep study, same missing time. Claire's stomach dropped. The woman on the screen sat up slowly, then froze. The camera jittered. Something stepped into the frame. It was her, the woman, standing at the foot of her own bed, watching herself sleep. The footage ended. Claire clawed at her own skin, digging her nails into her arms. I'm still here. I'm still me. She wasn't sure anymore. She tried to leave. Dr. Calloway blocked her path. It's already started, he whispered. His face was pale, his fingers trembling at his sides. You have to leave before. Before what? A mirror stood in the corner of the hall. She hadn't seen it before. Her reflection wasn't right. It blinked too slow. Claire's breath hitched in her throat. Then it smiled, not with her mouth, with something else, something deeper. The overhead lights flickered. Something exhaled against her ear. A breath like ice, like dead air pulled through lungs that didn't belong to her. A voice, her own voice, whispered, "Do not sleep again. It takes your place." Morning came. The researchers found Claire's room empty. Her bed was neatly made. The camera footage was wiped. Dr. Calloway stood at the screen, staring at the final frame. Claire was gone, but something was still lying in her bed, perfectly still, perfectly breathing. It opened its eyes and smiled at the camera. The end. Nathan Ellis heard the knock on his window just past midnight. A single soft tap. He tensed, fingers hovering over his laptop's keyboard. It was the wind, surely. The apartment sat on the 11th floor, too high for anything but the weather to touch his window. Another knock, deliberate. Nathan swallowed, willing himself to ignore it. He was alone. He had lived alone for years, choosing this high-rise for the quiet, the isolation. He turned back to his screen, the blinking cursor waiting. Knock, knock. His breath hitched. He stood slowly, the old wooden floor creaking under his weight. The curtains remained drawn. He hadn't opened them in days. Something about the stillness of the city at night unsettled him. His fingers hesitated over the curtain's edge. And then, a frantic knock at his door. Nathan nearly jumped out of his skin. He turned away from the window, exhaling sharply. His pulse drummed in his ears as he approached the door and peered through the peephole. It was Mr. Keene, his next-door neighbor. The old man looked pale, his lined face set with something like fear. Nathan unlocked the door. "Keene, what is it?" The old man stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "You heard it, didn't you?" he whispered. "At your window." Nathan blinked. The knocking had stopped. "Yeah, He glanced back at the curtain. "It's just the wind." Keene's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't look," he said. His eyes were wild. "No matter what you do, don't open the curtain." A cold sensation crept up Nathan's spine. "Why?" Keene licked his lips. "If you see it, it sees you. And once it knows you've seen it, it won't stop. Nathan let out a breathless chuckle. You're scaring me. King's grip tightened. Good, be scared. Nathan pulled free. Look, it's late. I think you should go. But King was already backing toward the door. Whatever you do, he muttered again. Don't look. And then he was gone. Nathan locked the door and rubbed his temple. He's crazy. But as he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then, knock, knock. He squeezed his eyes shut. Knock, knock, knock. Sleep took him in fitful waves. Nathan woke up feeling off. The bed felt different. The air smelled strange. He sat up and froze. The view outside his bedroom window was wrong. He rushed to the front door, heart hammering. He unlocked it and stepped into the hallway. The number on his door was 1002. Nathan staggered back. His apartment had been 1102. He turned in circles, breath ragged. Everything inside the apartment was identical. His furniture, his books, even the glass of water he'd left on the nightstand. But it wasn't his floor. He ran to the building manager's office. The woman behind the desk squinted at him. Mr. Ellis, what's wrong? He swallowed. I think someone moved my things while I was asleep. She frowned. Sir, you've always lived on the 10th floor. No, he whispered. I lived on the 11th. She checked her records. There's no record of you ever living there. Nathan staggered away. That night he locked every door, every window. He sat awake watching the curtain. The knocking started earlier this time. Knock, knock, knock. He gripped the armrests of his chair. If you see it, it sees you. Keen's warning gnawed at him. His fingers itched. What could be knocking? His hand moved on its own, gripping the curtain's edge. With one quick motion, he yanked it open. Nathan's breath left his body in a silent scream. Outside his window, suspended in the air, was a figure. Featureless, formless. Its presence was wrong, a void that swallowed the city lights. It raised a hand, slow, deliberate, and knocked. Nathan stumbled back. The thing tilted its head. Though it had no eyes, he felt it lock onto him. He slammed the curtain shut. The knocking did not stop. Nathan woke with a gasp. He knew before he even checked. The number on his door read 0902. His apartment had moved again. No, he had moved again. Nathan tore through his things. His ID, his lease agreement. His name was listed under this unit, as if he had always been here. His breath quickened. He ran to Keen's door and banged his fists against it. Keen, open up. No answer. A neighbor down the hall poked their head out. Keen. The woman frowned. You mean the guy from 1102? Nathan nodded frantically. Her expression darkened. No one's lived in 1102 for years, not since the last guy jumped from the window. Nathan's stomach lurched. That night he blocked the window with his dresser. But it didn't matter. The knocking started just after midnight, and this time it was louder, closer. He squeezed his eyes shut. If he ignored it, maybe it would stop. The knocking turned into pounding. Nathan curled into himself, gripping his head. Please, he whispered, please leave me alone. The room trembled, and then silence. Nathan lay there paralyzed as dawn's light crept through the cracks in the curtain. He didn't move for a long time. Then hesitantly, he sat up. The knocking hadn't returned. Maybe it was over. Maybe Nathan's blood turned to ice. The dresser had moved. It wasn't blocking the window anymore, and the curtain was open. He didn't remember opening it, didn't remember moving anything. And outside his window, the figure was still there, watching. Nathan clenched his teeth. He couldn't run, couldn't escape. His hands trembled as he reached for the curtain. Don't look. But Nathan was already looking. He woke up in a new apartment. The number on the door read 0802. The next night, 0702, then 0602. The records would say he had always lived there. No one ever reached the ground floor. No one ever left. And every night, the knocking never stopped. The end. Lisa liked their new home, liked the sloped roof, the wraparound porch, the way the hydrangeas caught the afternoon light. It was quiet too, a hell of a change from the screaming sirens and midnight arguments outside their old apartment window. James said they'd made the right choice. She almost believed him, except for the neighbor, Mr. Hollis. They first noticed him on moving day. A tall, thin figure standing at the window of the house next door, watching. Lisa waved. He didn't wave back, just stared, motionless. James laughed it off. Probably just an old-timer, harmless. But the odd things started soon after. The garbage cans were taken in before Lisa could bring them up the driveway. The mail was neatly stacked by their door before James got home from work. One morning, James found the lawn freshly mowed. "Who the hell?" he muttered, staring at the even stripes. Lisa looked toward Mr. Hollis's window. The curtain shifted. James chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Guess we've got the world's most considerate stalker." That night, Lisa dreamt of footsteps in the hallway. Lisa started keeping track. Every day at precisely 9 a.m., Mr. Hollis would appear at his window, hands folded at his waist, staring toward their house. Every night when Lisa went to bed, the sensation of being watched kept her awake. She started locking their bedroom door. Then came the scratching. It was a low, methodical sound. Scritch, scritch. Lisa bolted upright in bed. She nudged James, heart pounding. "Do you hear that?" James groaned. "It's just a raccoon." She tiptoed to the door, pressed her ear against it. Silence now. She checked the security camera feed on her phone. Nothing. She tried to sleep, but when she got up the next morning, the front door was slightly open, and there were footprints in the dew-covered grass leading from Mr. Hollis's house to their door. Things escalated. Lisa woke to find the fridge stocked with brands they'd never used. Their usual coffee replaced with a tin of Maxwell House. Their preferred detergent swapped for a brand Lisa hadn't seen since childhood. "I didn't buy this," she told James, holding up a bag of unfamiliar groceries. James frowned. "You sure?" "I think I'd remember buying peanut butter we don't eat." James found it funny at first. "Maybe we've got a grocery fairy." Lisa didn't laugh. She checked the security footage again. From 3 to 3:07 a.m. the screen was static. She wanted to leave. Then the bedroom door, locked before bed, was found slightly ajar the next morning. Lisa sought answers. She knocked on the neighbor's door across the street, a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair. "Do you know Mr. Hollis?" Lisa asked. The woman stiffened. "You should leave him alone." Lisa blinked. "Excuse me?" "You're new here," the woman said, voice hushed. "You'll learn." Lisa stepped back. "Learn what?" But the woman only shook her head and shut the door. The next night, Lisa awoke to the feeling of something standing in the room. She could feel it, the way you know someone's there before you open your eyes. Her pulse hammered. She barely breathed. She reached for James and touched nothing but cold sheets. Her eyes shot open. The bedroom door was wide open. The hallway was dark. "James," she whispered. A shadow moved near the stairs. She grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight. James was at the bottom, standing by the front door, staring. called again, voice shaking. He turned his head toward her, his eyes dull, like he wasn't really awake. Then, as if waking from a trance, he shuddered and stumbled back. "Lisa, what the hell am I doing down here?" Lisa ran down to him, heart hammering. "You," she started, but stopped. The front door was unlocked, and just outside, in the moonlight, muddy footprints led from their porch back to Mr. Hollis's house. The next day, Lisa packed a bag. "We need to go," she told James. James hesitated. "Lisa, I know things are weird, but..." A frantic knock at the door interrupted him. Lisa jumped. A woman stood on their porch, disheveled, out of breath, her gray hair wild. Lisa recognized her, the neighbor who had shut her out. The woman's face was pale with terror. "You need to leave." Lisa swallowed. "What's happening?" The woman's eyes flicked toward Mr. Hollis's house. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We all had a Mr. Hollis. We all were Mr. Hollis once." Lisa's skin prickled. The woman grabbed her arm. "You're next." Then she was gone, hurrying down the street, her warning lingering in the humid summer air. James gave in. "Fine, we'll go to a hotel." They gathered their things, but when James reached for the car keys, they were gone. Lisa grabbed her phone. Battery dead. James's phone unresponsive. "Lisa," James said, voice tight, "let's go next door." Lisa hesitated, but James was already out the door. He pounded on Mr. Hollis's door. No answer. James tried the knob. Unlocked. Lisa's breath caught. James stepped inside. Lisa followed, her pulse hammering. The house was empty, not just vacant, abandoned. No furniture, no pictures, no dishes in the cabinets, just a thick layer of dust and a single rocking chair in the front window, facing their house. James turned. Mr. Hollis stood behind them. Lisa gasped. He was smiling, but something was wrong. His face too smooth, his eyes too dark. James's breathing turned ragged, his pupils dilated. Lisa grabbed his arm. "We have to go." James didn't move. His fingers twitched. "James," Lisa whispered, his lips curled upward. "James." He turned to face her. His expression wasn't his anymore. The next morning, Lisa was gone. James stood at the window, watching. A new family pulled into the driveway. A husband, a wife, smiling, unpacking boxes. James's lips twitched. Somewhere down the street, an old woman saw. She closed her blinds, shut her doors, and whispered, "You're next." The cycle continues. The end. Hey. Diego Ramirez glanced at the rideshare app. The request was a one-way trip out of town. It was late, past midnight, but he needed the money. The passenger was already waiting at the curb, standing in the wash of a flickering streetlight. No luggage, no phone in hand, just still and watching. Diego shivered. He forced a smile. "You call for a ride?" The man nodded and slid into the back seat without a word. He smelled faintly of damp earth. Diego tapped the start ride button. The GPS mapped out the route, 40 minutes, mostly highway. As they pulled away, he glanced in the rear view. The passenger was staring out the window, face obscured by shadow. "Long night, huh?" Diego attempted. The passenger said nothing. The road stretched empty ahead. The city lights faded, swallowed by the dark. Then a chime. The GPS screen glitched. The blue line warped, rerouting, recalculating. "Take the next exit." Diego frowned. Weird. The highway was the only direct way to the drop-off point, but the app was adamant. Take the detour. He exhaled and turned off. The new road was narrow, lined with towering trees that pressed in on either side. There were no houses, no mile markers. The air felt thick, like a held breath. He checked his phone. No service. He swallowed hard. "This way look familiar to you?" he asked. No response. Diego's fingers tightened on the wheel. The silence in the car had become oppressive. He glanced in the mirror again. The passenger was staring at him now. His stomach knotted. He focused on the road. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. But the road never ended. His heart hammered. That wasn't possible. He pulled over, threw the car into park. His breathing was ragged. The passenger remained still, watching. "I think I took a wrong turn, man," Diego said, forcing a laugh. "Gonna turn around." He swung the car in a U-turn. The headlights cut through the void. He drove fast. The tires hummed against the pavement. Then, his stomach dropped. The same twisting trees, the same empty road. He checked the dashboard clock. 1:12 a.m. The same time it had been since they left the city. No. A sound. A whisper. "This is where you pick me up." Diego's breath caught in his throat. He whipped his head around. The back seat was empty. The car swerved. He yanked the wheel, heart pounding. He slammed on the brakes, gasping. His hands trembled as he reached for the dash cam. His fingers fumbled over the playback. The footage showed the car in motion, the driver's seat, his hands on the wheel, the empty road ahead, the empty back seat. Diego's vision blurred. His chest heaved. The passenger had never been there. The phone in his pocket vibrated. Unknown caller. His fingers shook as he answered. A distorted voice. "Keep driving." He hurled the phone against the dashboard. The road stretched ahead, an endless corridor of darkness. Then out of nowhere, a gas station. Its neon sign buzzed weakly against the void. Diego sped toward it, tires screeching. He pulled up, threw the car in park, and stumbled inside. The fluorescent lights hummed. An old man stood behind the counter. His eyes widened in horror. "Holy God!" The man took a step back. "It's you." Diego's pulse pounded. "I need help." The man shoved a newspaper across the counter. His hand trembled. Diego stared. "Missing. Rideshare driver 2019. His own face stared back at him. His body went cold. "No," he whispered. "That's not I only left tonight." The man's face twisted with something between fear and pity. "You were gone for 3 years." The store felt too bright, too loud. His chest tightened. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. "I don't." The bell above the door jingled. Diego turned. A car had pulled up outside. Another rideshare driver. Another passenger waiting in the dark. A chilling realization gripped him. It was happening again. Diego lunged for the door, desperate to warn them, but his reflection in the glass was gone. His breath hitched. His hands were shaking. The gas station attendant took a step back, his face pale. What are you looking at?" Diego pressed his palms to the glass. The driver outside hesitated, looked at his phone, tapped start ride. The passenger got in. The car pulled away, and Diego was no longer there. Only the quiet hum of a distant car engine. Only the road stretching on forever, waiting for the next. The end. Amber arrived at Hilton Westwood just after 9 p.m., exhausted from a delayed flight and 2 back-to-back client meetings. The front desk was empty at first, just a faint scent of citrus and industrial carpet cleaner lingering in the air. She tapped the bell. A receptionist emerged from the back office, stopping mid-step when he saw her. He hesitated, just a flicker, but enough for Amber to notice. Checking in. His voice was careful. "Yes." Amber Holt. Reservation for 1 week. His fingers hovered over the keyboard before he nodded slowly. "Of course." He slid the key card across the counter. No ID check. No signature. It was odd. but she was too tired to question it. Upstairs, the hallway stretched long and hushed, the kind of quiet that made you aware of your own footsteps. Her room was standard: gray carpet, neat bed, an overworked air conditioning unit humming in the corner. But as soon as she dropped her suitcase, she noticed something wrong. The closet was full. Clothes. Hangers lined up with pressed blouses, slacks, and coats. Her size. Her brands. Even the same exact red scarf she'd left at home. In the bathroom, the strangeness continued. The cabinet held her toiletries, or rather perfect replicas of them. Same brand of foundation, same toothbrush, arranged exactly as she would have placed them. Her stomach tightened. She yanked out her phone and called the front desk. "Hi, I think there's been a mix-up. Someone else's stuff is in my room." The receptionist paused. "Miss, you checked in 3 days ago." A cold weight settled in her chest. "No, you extended your stay yesterday, and you never left the room." Amber hung up. Her laptop was already connected to the Wi-Fi, but not under her usual username. The network recognized her as Amber Holt 2. A glitch. A mix-up. That was all. She reached for her suitcase, ready to march downstairs and sort it out. But the suitcase was already open. Her clothes were already in the drawers. Her pulse jumped. She hadn't unpacked. She grabbed the room key and stormed into the hallway. It should have been a straight shot to the elevators, but when she turned the corner, the hallway kept going and going. Room numbers blurred together. 629, 631, 633, then 629 again. Her steps quickened, breath tightening. The elevator should have been here. She should have reached it already. Then from the end of the hall, a figure emerged. Amber's breath hitched. It was her. Same height, same black slacks, same red scarf. The woman locked eyes with her, face eerily calm. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Amber chased after her, but no matter how fast she ran, she never got any closer. Back in her room, Amber locked the door and pressed her back against it. Her own breath sounded unfamiliar. Her mirror reflection didn't match her movements. A half-second delay, her hand still raised after she had lowered it. She grabbed a pen and scrawled on the desk pad, "I am real. I am Amber Holt." The moment she lifted the pen, the ink faded. Her stomach lurched. A tap came at the door, not a knock, a gentle, careful tap. She crept forward, looked through the peephole. Another Amber stood outside, her own face, her own wide, staring eyes. Then, a dozen more Ambers filled the hallway, some in business suits, some in pajamas, some crying. They whispered in unison, "Are you the original?" Amber slammed the deadbolt. The television clicked on by itself. Security camera footage played on screen. The lobby. At the front desk, Amber was checking in. The receptionist greeted her, handed her the same room key. Then another Amber stepped onto the elevator, looking up at the security camera. Looking at her, a knock, not at the door. From the bathroom, Amber turned slowly. The mirror warped, her reflection twisting, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. Then it whispered, "You are not the first." Amber bolted for the door, plunging into the hallway. The lights flickered. The other Ambers turned toward her, their expressions flickering between recognition and terror. One of them reached out. "Don't let it replace you." Amber ran. Doors blurred past her. Elevator buttons refused to light. She reached a stairwell, shoving through the exit, and found herself back at the front desk. The receptionist smiled. "Welcome back, Miss Holt." The hotel lobby was identical, but something felt subtly wrong. The artwork on the walls was different. The receptionist's tie was a different color. A sinking feeling pooled in her stomach. Amber turned to the glass entry doors. Another Amber was outside, waiting for a taxi. Her own face, her own suitcase. Amber's breath came short and shallow. She pressed a hand against the glass. The Amber outside froze. Slowly she turned, locking eyes with her. A sharp pain pierced Amber's head like something peeling her thoughts away. Memories vanished, her flight here, her company, her apartment, her own name. What was her name? A voice whispered behind her. "Are you ready to check in?" Amber turned. The receptionist held out a key card. Room 633. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, unable to stop herself. The moment the plastic touched her palm, she forgot everything. She stepped into the elevator, numb. The doors closed, her mind emptied. All she knew was that she was tired, that she was checking into a hotel for work, and that her name was Amber Holt. The doors opened. Room 633 waited for her. In the lobby, the receptionist turned toward the security camera, where another Amber was already watching. He smiled. "Welcome back, Miss Holt." The end. Jacob Fields adjusted his glasses and stepped into the quiet, overly sterile waiting room. The air smelled of disinfectant and something vaguely sweet, like overripe fruit. A single receptionist sat behind a frosted glass partition, typing away with mechanical efficiency. Jacob Fields. He looked up. The doctor himself stood at the door to his office, smiling. He was an older man, lean, with an unsettling stillness in his posture. "That's me," Jacob said, stepping forward. "Good to see you back," the doctor said warmly. Jacob hesitated. "Back?" The doctor's smile flickered just for a second, but he didn't answer. Instead, he gestured toward the open office door. Jacob stepped inside. The office was modern but unremarkable. Diplomas on the wall, a faint smell of latex gloves. The doctor took a seat behind the desk, gesturing for Jacob to sit across from him. Then Jacob saw it. A manila folder sat neatly in front of the doctor, labeled Fields, Jacob in crisp black lettering. He wouldn't have thought anything of it, except it was thick, far too thick for a first visit. The doctor flipped it open, revealing pages of notes, prescriptions, even MRI scans. He scanned the first page. "Patient has been responding well to the prescribed regimen. Last visit, 3 weeks ago." Jacob's stomach twisted. "I think there's been a mistake. I've never been here before." The doctor's fingers hovered over the pages. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. A shadow, a careful recalibration. "Jacob, I'm sure you have." "No," Jacob said firmly. "I would remember." The doctor studied him for a long moment, then sighed and pushed the folder forward. "Would you?" Jacob glanced at the open file. There in neat blue ink were pages of medical updates under his name, his birthday, his insurance information. The doctor flipped further, revealing prescriptions with dates spanning months. "I don't." Jacob swallowed, reaching for his phone with clammy fingers. He opened his messages, scrolling quickly. There, under his own contact, were messages sent from his number. "Sep 4th 10:20 m. I think it's working. I don't remember the last appointment at all. Aug 13th 2:45 p.m. Feeling off, but no memories of the gaps. Good July 29th 4:30 p.m. The new protocol is effective. Can't remember the pain." Jacob's mouth went dry. His thumbs trembled as he scrolled further, past weeks, months of messages from himself to himself. They all shared the same detached tone. Clinical, as though he had agreed to something. "I don't remember any of this." His voice came out hoarse. The doctor's chair creaked as he leaned forward. Jacob, that's exactly what we hoped for. The room was suddenly too small, the air thick with something he couldn't name. Jacob pushed back from the desk. No, this isn't right. He gestured wildly at the file. You have the wrong person, or I'm being pranked, or you're upset, the doctor said smoothly, standing up. That's understandable. Jacob lurched for the door, his fingers curled around the handle, only to find it locked. This is a mistake, he choked out. I promise you it's not. The doctor's hand was suddenly on his shoulder, pressing just lightly, just enough to make Jacob's knees lock. He hadn't even seen the man move. Jacob, the doctor murmured, sit back down. I don't want you to hurt yourself. I'm not, but as he tried to pull away, a sharp pain lanced through his skull. His knees buckled. He gasped, barely catching himself against the desk. Flashes, blinding white rooms, voices murmuring over him, the cold press of metal instruments against his temples. Jacob staggered backward, his vision swimming. Something had been done to him, and this wasn't the first time. The doctor exhaled, watching him. It's happening sooner than usual this time, he said, almost to himself. Interesting. Jacob fought through the haze, gripping his mind. He forced himself to speak. What did you do to me? We helped you, the doctor said gently, and we'll help you again. Jacob's breath hitched. He turned, throwing his full weight into the door. His shoulder slammed against it. Again. His vision blurred at the edges, the world smearing like wet paint. He had to get out. Something cold pressed against his neck, a sharp prick. His body sagged instantly. The doctor caught him before he hit the ground, lowering him carefully back into the chair. Jacob's eyes fluttered. His limbs felt like lead. His mouth barely formed words. Please. Shush, the doctor murmured, flipping to the last page of the file and making a note. You're doing very well, Jacob. I'll see you again next month. Jacob's eyelids drooped. His thoughts scattered, fading like ink in water. The doctor smiled. Or rather, he said, you won't remember seeing us. The end. Morris blinked the sleep from her eyes as she shuffled into the kitchen, the smell of toast and peanut butter thick in the air. Danny, her 6-year-old son, was already at the table, swinging his legs beneath the chair, a smear of jelly on his cheek. She kissed the top of his head, ruffled his curls. Morning, kiddo. Danny giggled. Mommy, you forgot to say good morning to Mr. Albert. Julia froze. Her hand hovered over the coffee pot as her brain caught up. Who? Danny pointed to the empty chair across from him. His face was bright, expectant. Mr. Albert, he says you always forget. A slow chill crept up her spine. She swallowed, forced a small smile. Well, tell Mr. Albert I'm very sleepy and very sorry. Danny nodded, satisfied, and went back to his toast. It wasn't until she sat down that she noticed it. An extra plate, crumbs scattered across the porcelain, a half-empty coffee cup, steam curling from the surface. The chair opposite Danny slightly pulled back from the table like someone had just gotten up. Her stomach dropped. She ran through her morning in her head. Had she said that? Maybe. She was always exhausted, always moving on autopilot. Maybe she made a plate for herself and forgot. She grabbed the cup and dumped it in the sink, her hands trembling as she turned on the faucet, just tired. That's all. But as she turned back, she saw Danny's gaze flick toward the empty chair. And he smiled. That night, she installed a camera in the kitchen. The next morning, she sat at the table with her laptop, pulling up the footage. At first, everything looked normal. The timestamp showed the house still and empty overnight. Then static, just long enough to be wrong. The timestamps remained intact, but for hours at a time, the footage was completely distorted. A smear of motion, shapes shifting unnaturally. But in every still frame, one shape remained constant. A blurred figure sitting at the table, right across from Danny. Julia slammed the laptop shut. She called the police. No forced entry, no fingerprints, no proof. Could be a glitch, the officer said, scratching his chin. Or maybe he hesitated like he didn't want to say it. Imagine things. She felt the weight of his silence, of his doubt. The next few nights, things got worse. She'd wake up to small changes, her missing earrings placed neatly on her nightstand, the refrigerator restocked with groceries she hadn't bought. One morning, Danny's backpack was packed, his lunch already made, sandwich cut into perfect triangles, an apple wrapped in a paper towel. She asked Danny if he did it. He just shrugged. Mr. Albert likes things neat. That night, she woke up to silence. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. Something was wrong. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. Julia crept into the kitchen, bare feet whispering across the floor. She stopped in the doorway. Everything was clean. The dishes were washed, dried, stacked in perfect towers. The counters gleamed. The fridge had been wiped down. Danny's toys, usually scattered across the floor, were arranged in a perfect row, small plastic soldiers standing at attention. And on the living room wall, written in deliberate, careful cursive, "I was never here. Stop looking." Julia clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. She stopped sleeping. The police had been no help. "I understand it's scary," the officer said, hands clasped in his lap. "But there's no evidence of a break-in. Maybe you." She stood up before he could finish, walked out. That night, she sat at the kitchen table, knife in hand. The camera was running. If he, whoever or whatever it was, came back, she'd see him. Danny shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, go to bed." She shook her head. "No, baby, go back to sleep." Danny frowned. "Albert says you shouldn't be awake right now." A slow, sharp spike of cold fear slipped through her. The air shifted. The shadows moved. A whisper, soft, amused. "She's starting to see me now." The lights flickered. The camera feed cut out. Julia's breath hitched. The air turned dense, wrong, like the walls were leaning in. Danny turned to the empty chair and whispered, "It's okay, Mr. Albert. She's just scared." The chair scraped backward, as if someone was sitting down. Julia grabbed Danny and ran. The next morning, she was gone. The house was immaculate, the kitchen spotless. Danny sat at the breakfast table, swinging his legs, eating his toast. A low, calm voice drifted from the kitchen. "Hurry up, kiddo. We've got things to do." Danny smiled. He turned to the empty space beside him and nodded. The end. Ethan stepped into the elevator, rubbing his eyes. Long shift. Too many deliveries, not enough patience left in his body. He thumbed the button for B2, eager to grab his car and go home. The door slid shut with a muted ding. He exhaled. The usual hum of descent filled the space, but something off. The elevator was moving too smoothly, like it wasn't stopping at B1 or B2. The numbers on the panel flickered strangely. Matter 1, 2, 3. Ethan frowned. His building didn't have negative floors. He jabbed the emergency button. Nothing. No click, no response. He pulled out his phone. No signal. The panel continued its silent countdown. Matt is 12, now 13. The elevator stopped. The door slid open with a soft chime. He was looking into his apartment, floor 13. It wasn't just his apartment. It was his apartment from 5 years ago. The calendar on the fridge said June 16th, 2019. His old sneakers sat by the door, the ones he threw out after they fell apart. A crumpled pizza box sat on the counter, and sitting at the kitchen table was him, a younger Ethan. The younger version of himself sipped coffee, scrolling his phone, oblivious to the nightmare staring at him. Ethan's breath came in shallow bursts. This was impossible. He could see the texture of the old couch, the way the lamp flickered from a loose bulb. Real. This was all real. A single thought screamed in his head. I should not be here. He took a shaky step forward, and suddenly, younger Ethan looked up. Ethan's heart seized, but his younger self didn't see him. He was looking at something behind Ethan. Ethan whirled. The elevator doors were closing. No, no. He lunged, slammed his hand against the panel, and pounded the buttons. Any button. The doors shut. The descent resumed. Floor 24. The doors opened to his childhood bedroom. The air smelled of dust and crayons. The walls were lined with Star Wars posters. His old bunk bed stood against the far wall, and from beneath the covers a lump shifted. Ethan's pulse hammered. He remembered this room. He remembered the nightmares. From the closet, something scratched at the inside of the door. A memory clawed up his spine. He had been 6, hiding under the covers, hearing the same scratching sound at night. His mother had said it was just mice, but he had never seen mice. The closet door creaked open. Ethan slammed his hand against the closed door button. The last thing he saw was something stepping out of the closet on all fours. The door shut. Floor 32. A hospital room. Ethan stepped forward, throat dry. A younger teenage version of himself lay in the hospital bed, pale and unconscious. The IV dripped slowly beside him. The heart monitor beeped rhythmically steady. He knew this room. Appendicitis, age 15. He had woken up groggy, sore, alive. Except his eyes traveled to the corner of the room. Someone was sitting in the chair. His mother. Ethan staggered back. His mother had died 3 years ago. She was younger, like she had been before the cancer wasted her away. She sat motionless, staring at the sleeping teenage version of him. Then, slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes locked onto Ethan. She saw him. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Ethan backed away, his vision swimming. He slammed his fist against the elevator panel, breathing in ragged gasps. The door shut. The elevator continued. Floor, a funeral home. Ethan already knew who was in the casket before he stepped out. Him. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and decay. The room was empty except for the open casket, where his own still face lay beneath too much makeup. He took a shuddering step forward. His hands were ice cold. His throat burned. He looked down at his own corpse. His eyes snapped open. Ethan stumbled backward, hitting the elevator wall. The dead version of himself grinned. The lights flickered violently. The coffin lid slammed shut. The doors closed. Ethan screamed. The elevator stopped abruptly. Ethan was shaking. His whole body felt wrong, as if something had rearranged him internally. The doors opened. It was an office. A clean, modern reception area with white walls, warm lighting, the scent of fresh coffee in the air. Ethan did not know this place. A woman sat at the front desk, smiling warmly. She looked expectant. "You made it," she said. Ethan swallowed hard. "What?" She slid a clipboard across the desk. "Sign here to start your new position." Ethan hesitated. He looked around. There were no doors, no windows, only the elevator behind him. Except the elevator doors were gone. His stomach lurched. No way back. No escape. Just the desk, the woman, the clipboard. He looked down at the paper. His name was already written there, in his own handwriting, and the pen in his hand began moving on its own. The ink curled across the page, completing the final strokes of his signature. Somewhere far away, an elevator dinged. The descent began again. The end. Nathaniel Graves had seen plenty of database errors in his years as a data analyst for the city's Census Bureau. Misspellings, duplicate entries, dead residents who still voted. It all came with the job. But this was impossible. The same 57 names appearing on every single census report since 1952. Unchanged. No date of birth, no listed occupations, no medical history, just names imprinted into the city's bones decade after decade. He checked again, cross-referenced birth certificates, social security databases. Nothing. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. The office hummed around him, the rhythmic clatter of keyboards, the fluorescent lights buzzing like trapped insects. He felt an odd pressure in his ears, like the room was shrinking. A shadow passed by his cubicle. His coworker Danny paused, holding a coffee. "You okay, man?" Nathaniel hesitated. Then, too casually, "Ever notice the same names on every census?" Danny's smile lingered a second too long. "Nah." Nathaniel watched him walk away. The usual office murmur seemed wrong, too even. Conversations starting and stopping at the same rhythm. He heard someone laughing, but not naturally, more like a playback loop. A cold prickle ran down his spine. At lunch, he stopped at Parkside Cafe. The usual crowd, faces he recognized, but something felt off. He sat near the window, stirring sugar into his coffee when he overheard two men talking at the next table. They added a new one. Nathaniel glanced over. One man in a gray suit, the other wearing an old navy coat, both staring at him now. Silent. His throat tightened. He grabbed his laptop and left. Nathaniel spent the night digging. City records, archived obituaries, property deeds. The 57 names never changed. They lived in every district, yet no rental agreements, no mortgages, no work history, just existing. His breath came faster. He wiped his hands on his jeans, suddenly aware of the quiet in his apartment. No car horns, no neighbors, not even the refrigerator hum. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. A pause. Then his own voice whispered through the speaker. The line went dead. Nathaniel bolted up, knocking over his chair. The air in the room felt thicker, pressing against his skin. He grabbed his laptop and keys. He needed air. The next morning, he wasn't in the system. Nathaniel logged into his work database and tried to retrieve his own records. Access denied. Panic gnawed at his ribs. He called HR. "Hi, this is Nathaniel Graves." A pause. Then, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't see anyone by that name in our files." His stomach dropped. "Try my employee ID. We don't have a Nathaniel Graves employed here." The voice was flat, too flat. His hands shook as he ended the call. His name was still on his apartment lease, still on his driver's license. Right? He checked his wallet. The ID read, David Reeves. The world tilted. His breath turned shallow. No, this wasn't right. He ran to his laptop, opening his email, searching frantically for anything. An old pay stub, a forwarded joke from Danny. But his inbox was empty. Everything before today was gone. Nathaniel needed proof, a tangible link to his past. He went to city archives. If there were physical census records from the 1950s, he could compare them. The basement was cold, lit by flickering yellow bulbs. Dust hung in the air like cobwebs. The rows of metal shelves stretched endlessly. He found the old census books, flipped through pages, hands trembling. Then he froze. A photo on one of the pages. A man standing with the census team, his face. But beneath it, the caption read, David Reeves. His breath hitched. He flipped forward. More records, more photos. His face appearing every 20 years under different names. Nathaniel's stomach lurched. His fingers felt numb. Something moved behind him. He turned sharply. A man in a gray suit stood at the entrance. Nathaniel backed away, heart pounding. He grabbed the book, but the man took a step forward, shaking his head. You don't exist anymore, Mr. Reeves. Nathaniel bolted, pushing past him, ran up the stairs into the open air, but the city was silent. No traffic, no voices. The streets were full, but no one was speaking. Hundreds of them, standing still, watching. That night, the power went out. Nathaniel sat in the dark, clutching his phone, his breath loud in the silence. Then a knock at the door, slow, rhythmic. He crept to the peephole. Dozens of people stood outside, staring, silent. A shape moved behind him. The laptop screen flickered on. A document auto-filled. 2024 census update. A new name was added. David Reeves. Nathaniel felt his own name leaving him. Like a house emptying, memory by memory. He turned back to the door. The lock clicked open. Morning. The city hummed with normalcy. People laughing, talking, going to work. David Reeves sat in his office at the Census Bureau, sipping coffee. Across from him, a new analyst clicked through reports, frowning. Hey, the young man said, rubbing his temple. Weird thing, these names appear in every census since the 50s, but no records exist for them. David paused, smiled. Don't think too much about it. He turned back to his screen. A new name had been added overnight, the new analyst's name. David watched him. The young man's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then, slowly he stopped typing. His eyes went blank. David smiled. Another one absorbed, and the census continued. The negatives curled in the developing tray, the images slowly emerging in shades of gray. Vanessa Carter watched, heart pounding as the final photograph took shape. It was a sequence. 4 frames taken inside an old photo booth. The first 3 were blurred beyond recognition. A figure sat on the small bench, head tilted slightly forward, but their features melted into the grain of the film. Distorted beyond logic. The last frame was perfect, sharp, unmistakable. Her own face stared back. Vanessa gasped, stepping back. It was impossible. She had never sat in that booth, never taken this photograph. And yet, there she was. Eyes locked on the camera lens, an expression frozen between realization and terror. The thrift store camera had been a random purchase, something she'd picked up in a dusty corner of second time around. It still had a roll of film inside, just a curiosity. But now her fingers trembled. The timestamp in the corner read, March 3rd. 2 days from now. The mall was a husk of itself, slated for demolition. Her boots echoed against the tile as she stepped into the dead space. Faded banners for long-gone sales hung limp. Mannequins stood half-dressed behind cracked glass. The entire place smelled of damp carpet and forgotten time. She had checked the records. The photo booth was real, tucked into the back corner of what used to be an arcade. And it was still there. The machine stood untouched, as if waiting for her. The maroon curtain was slightly askew, revealing a cracked vinyl seat. The coin slot was jammed with old quarters, rusted together like fossilized bones. Vanessa swallowed. The camera inside gleamed, unnervingly clean compared to the dust-coated exterior. A folded paper strip lay on the floor, half developed. She picked it up with careful fingers. 3 frames were obscured by smudged chemicals, but the last was partially visible, a blurred shape where a person should have been. A whisper of unease ran through her. She shouldn't be here. She should leave. Instead, she stepped inside. The air inside the booth was stale, thick with the scent of aged fabric and something faintly metallic. Her pulse hammered. She hadn't brought coins, but as soon as she settled onto the seat, the red light flickered on. The curtain twitched. Vanessa flinched, eyes darting to the edges. No movement, no air currents, just the thick silence pressing in. Then, click, the first flash burst, blinding. Her vision swam. Click, the second. Her limbs felt heavy. Click, the third. Something shifted beside her. She turned sharply. Click, the final flash. The red light blinked off. The machine whirred. The tray clattered. Vanessa exhaled shakily and reached for the strip. The first 3 frames were like the others, warped, unreadable. The last, her breath hitched. The bench was empty. Her hands trembled. This wasn't a trick. This wasn't a malfunction. Something was wrong. She turned to push the curtain aside. It wouldn't budge. Vanessa yanked harder. The fabric held firm as if welded shut. Panic surged. She pressed against the side panels, but the walls had shifted, closer, suffocating. The stale air thickened. And then, a whisper, low, distorted. She wasn't alone. A slow creeping shadow unfurled along the seat beside her. A presence, formless, shifting, just beyond her vision. The curtain rippled, something pressing against the fabric from the outside. Vanessa's breath came in short gasps. The machine whirred again. Another strip slid into the tray. With shaking fingers, she pulled it free. The first frame, the empty bench. The second, the curtain bulging outward. The third, a shape indistinct, dark. The fourth, she bit back a scream. A hand, not hers, reaching from the shadows, fingers grazing the edge of the bench. She clawed at the curtain, desperation overtaking her. It wouldn't move. The machine clicked again. The next frame developed. A whisper behind her ear. Smile. Vanessa choked on her own breath. Another click, another flash. A final photograph slid into the tray. She didn't want to look, but her hands moved on their own. The last image was clear. Not the empty seat, not a hand. Her body slumped forward, head tilted at an unnatural angle. Eyes wide, lifeless, trapped inside the machine. She tried to scream, but the world folded into black. 2 days later, the demolition crew arrived. One of the workers spotted the old photo booth in the rubble, its maroon curtain swaying slightly despite the windless air. Something glinted inside the coin slot. He dug it out, an undeveloped roll of film. Later that night, out of curiosity, he developed it. The last image chilled him to the core. A woman sitting in the booth, staring straight at the camera, eyes pleading, like she was trying to warn him. The end. Martin and Amanda had moved 6 times in 10 years. At first it was for work, then for better neighborhoods, then for reasons they couldn't quite put their finger on. Something always felt off. Neighbors who watched them a little too long, like they recognized them. Street names that changed overnight. Aspen Drive becoming Brook Lane without any road work or signs of repainting. Homes that seemed designed for them, with the right number of outlets in the places they always needed them. This latest move, though, this was supposed to be their last. Amanda had picked the house, a quiet rental on a cul-de-sac. It was old but charming, with ivy creeping up the porch and a small attic where she could store her art supplies. "We're staying put this time," Martin had told her. "No more moving." She had smiled and kissed him. Then he found the bill. It was stuffed in the back of a kitchen drawer, yellowed with age. Martin and Amanda Carter were neatly printed at the top, but the address below wasn't one he recognized. Martin turned it over. Another bill was beneath it. Then another. His stomach tightened. He pulled out the whole stack. Hundreds of them. Each one had their names. Each one had a different address. The dates stretched back decades, 60 years. Some of the bills had his handwriting on them, his signature. Martin felt something in his chest tighten, an old, cold fear rising like bile. A sound drifted in from upstairs. "Amanda," he called. No answer. He set the bills down, moving through the house, room by room. The bedroom was empty. Amanda's side of the bed was unmade, but her shoes were missing. Her closet, half empty. She wouldn't have left without telling him. Martin grabbed his phone, tried calling her, straight to voicemail. His hands felt numb. The front door creaked open. A man stepped inside. Martin turned. It was the landlord, an older man with a sunken face and an easy smile. He looked at Martin like a child who had wandered too far. "Time for your next move, Mr. Carter." Martin's mouth went dry. The landlord stepped aside. A moving truck sat in the driveway, and beside it, himself. A man standing by the truck's open door, waving. Martin's own face staring back at him. "Come on," the other Martin called, voice calm and steady. "We've done this before." A sound rose in Martin's throat, something between a gasp and a scream. He turned and ran, up the stairs 2 at a time, yanking open the attic hatch. He climbed up in boxes, neatly stacked, dust settling on them like untouched memories. He grabbed the closest one. It was labeled in careful handwriting, Martin and Amanda Carter. Underneath a different address, he opened it. Inside was a wedding album. Their wedding album. But the pictures were wrong. The background different. The venue unfamiliar. Another box. Shoes. His shoes worn down and covered in dust. Another. Baby clothes. A tiny onesie, neatly folded. A name embroidered across the front. Eleanor Carter. Martin's breath caught in his throat. They never had a child. Footsteps creaked below. The landlord, the other Martin. They were coming. Martin clutched the onesie in shaking hands. "We always move," a voice whispered. The attic light flickered. "We always forget." A hand landed on his shoulder. Martin screamed. Darkness swallowed him whole. The rumble of an engine. Martin's head ached. He blinked. He was sitting in the passenger seat of a moving truck. The driver beside him smiled. It was himself. "Almost there," the other Martin said. Martin turned to look at the road ahead. A house loomed in the distance. Familiar. Too familiar. His stomach twisted. He reached for the door handle. Locked. He tried again, harder this time. The other Martin watched him, patient. "We'll settle in," he said. "Make it feel like home." Martin's hands curled into fists. "We don't have a choice." The truck rolled on. The house waited. Waiting like it always had. Waiting for them. The end. Sophia Alden arrived in the town of Ashbury just after dusk, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked pavement. She hadn't planned to stop, but the old museum had caught her eye. A brick building with the kind of arched windows you'd find in century-old churches. The sign out front read, "The Museum of Missing People." home of the lost and forgotten. A history professor by trade, Sophia had a soft spot for forgotten things. Old letters in antique stores, yellowed photographs with names scribbled on the back, tiny echoes of people who had long since vanished. Inside, the air was heavy, still. A single dim bulb hummed in the foyer. The front desk was unattended, but a small plaque read, "Exhibit the lost and forgotten, free admission." She stepped inside. The exhibit was a quiet thing. No grand displays or dramatic flourishes, just glass cases filled with ordinary objects. A scuffed wristwatch, a child's shoe, a rusted bicycle bell, a tarnished locket. The labels beneath them were simple, listing a name and the date the person had disappeared. Sophia traced her fingers over the glass, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the last case at the end of the room. Inside was an old leather journal, cracked at the spine. The pages had yellowed with age, but what stopped her cold was the handwriting. Her handwriting. The entry was half finished and dated tomorrow. She staggered back. That one's new. The voice startled her. She turned to find an older man standing by the doorway. His name tag read, "Jonathan Raines, Curator." "We get new editions every night," he said, stepping forward. "Unclaimed belongings of those who vanish. People call it an urban legend, but," he gestured to the room around them, "well, you see for yourself." Sophia swallowed, trying to calm her pulse. I don't understand," she said, staring at the journal. Raines studied her with a look of careful curiosity. "If it's yours, then I'd be very careful." "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "Once an item appears here, its owner is never seen again." Sophia gave a nervous laugh, shaking her head. "That's ridiculous. It's just a coincidence." "Is it?" He tapped the glass. Her eyes fell back to the journal. The ink was slightly smeared, the words trailing off mid-sentence as if the writer had been interrupted by what she didn't know. She needed to leave. Now. The museum doors groaned as she pushed through them, stepping into the night. But the street outside wasn't the same one she had parked on. Her car was gone. The buildings looked warped, stretched, wrong. The street lamps flickered, their glow unfamiliar. The town had shifted into something she didn't recognize. Her phone, she pulled it out, thumb pressing hard against the fingerprint sensor. Nothing. The screen flashed red, unrecognized user. She tried to call someone, anyone, but there was no signal, only a blank status bar, like the device had never belonged to her. A slow dread crept up her spine. She turned back toward the museum, only to find that the door was gone. In its place was nothing but brick. A laugh, low, knowing, drifted through the dark. She spun around, but the street was empty. She wasn't alone. She wandered the streets, searching for something, anything familiar. But Ashbury was gone, or at least the Ashbury she had entered. Shops were hollowed out husks, their signs faded into gibberish. The roads led nowhere, looping back to the same few blocks. The museum still stood at the center of it all, and in the window there was something new. She walked closer, dread pressing against her ribs. A glass display case now sat in the front window. Inside it, placed neatly among the other relics of the vanished, was her purse. Her breath hitched. She reached for the journal inside her coat pocket, hands trembling as she flipped it open. The unfinished entry was now complete. The last line, written in her own unmistakable script, "I should never have come here." A shadow moved behind the glass. Jonathan Raines stood there watching her. She ran. Her legs ached, lungs burning as she sprinted down the empty streets. Every alley, every turn, no way out. And then, she was back in front of the museum like she had never left. Jonathan Raines stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. "You can't leave, Miss Alden." She stepped backward. "This isn't real. I'm dreaming." "No," he sighed. "You came here. That's all it takes." Her pulse hammered. There has to be a way out. Raines hesitated, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out an old key, holding it up between his fingers. "There is a door," he said. "One way out." Sophia's breath shuddered. "What's the price?" she whispered. He studied her. "Your story, your name." She stared at the key. Was she willing to trade herself for escape? The next morning, Ashbury awoke as usual. A couple entered the museum, wandering through the quiet exhibits. They paused in front of the last display, gazing at the items behind the glass. A leather journal, a purse, a pair of glasses neatly folded. A new label had been placed beneath them, written in elegant script: Sophia Alden, vanished, March 5th, 2025. At the front desk, the curator leaned back in his chair, watching, waiting for the next visitor. The end. Malik first notices it in the cafe's bathroom mirror. A tiny lag. Barely anything. He wipes his hands on a paper towel, and in the reflection, his hands pause a fraction of a second too long before following suit. Maybe he's just tired. The early morning shifts are brutal, and customers don't care if he's running on 3 hours of sleep. His hands move fast, grinding beans, frothing milk, pouring latte art that customers admire but don't tip for. He barely has time to breathe, let alone worry about a weird mirror trick. But it happens again and again. At first, it's just a moment's delay. Then his reflection lingers after he looks away, its eyes holding on to his longer than they should. One night, he turns off his bedroom light and catches a glimpse of himself in the darkened window. His mirrored self still stands in the lit room, watching, smiling. Malik doesn't smile back. "You look tired." His co-workers start acting strange. "Hey, you okay?" Elena asks, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Yeah, why?" She hesitates like she wants to say something else. Instead, she just stirs. Another day, Brian gives him a weird look. "Dude, you're kind of freaking me out today." "How?" "I don't know, man. It's like..." He trails off, shaking his head. "Never mind." The customers are weirder. A woman hands him exact change and mutters, "You shouldn't be here." A regular, an old man who always orders black coffee, frowns at him. "I'm sorry," he says. "It's a shame." "A shame?" Malik asks. The old man just sighs. It gets worse. Malik watches himself in the backroom mirror as he pulls on his apron. He tightens the strap behind his back, but in the mirror, his reflection hesitates for just a second too long, like it forgot what it was supposed to do. Another night, he brushes his teeth and glances at the mirror. His reflection is already looking at him before he turns his head. He tests it, moving his arm up and down. The reflection follows, except once, just once, it doesn't move at all. Then one morning it does something new. He wakes up groggy, stumbling into the bathroom. He flips on the light, yawns, and looks up. His reflection is missing. The mirror shows the bathroom, the sink, the shower curtain, the tiles. But not him. Malik blinks, breath catching in his throat. He waves a hand in front of the glass. Nothing. His reflection is gone. The light flickers. The mirror shifts. It no longer reflects his bathroom. It shows something else. His childhood home. The one that burned down when he was 6. He sees the floral wallpaper in the kitchen, the old wooden chairs, the linoleum floor he used to slide across in socks. He steps closer. The image in the mirror changes. His mother stands at the stove, stirring a pot. His father sits at the table, reading the newspaper. His sister who died 10 years ago, laughs as she flicks water from her hands, playfully scolded for making a mess. Malek's throat tightens. This isn't real. It can't be real. His reflection steps into frame. It watches him. It reaches out. Its fingers press against the glass, and Malek swears he feels the chill on his skin. Its lips move, whispering, "Trade places." He should run. He should turn away, smash the mirror, do anything but stand here. But his feet don't move, because what if? What if he reaches back? What if he touches the glass and finds himself there, in the place where things didn't go wrong, in the place where his family is still alive, where his life wasn't filled with long shifts, aching bones, sleepless nights? What if he could have that? His reflection tilts its head, waiting, expectant. The cafe, the customers, Elena and Brian, his life, they all feel distant, like a story someone else told him, like a life that belongs to someone else. He lifts a shaking hand, presses his palm to the glass. It's cold. His reflection smiles. The world tilts. And then he's standing in his childhood kitchen. His mother turns and beams at him. "Morning, sweetheart." His father lowers the newspaper. "Sleep well?" His sister grins. "You look like you saw a ghost." Malek laughs because this is right. This is how it should be. Outside, the mirror in the cafe's bathroom still stands. A barista named Malek stands in front of it. But it isn't him anymore. The reflection watches, smiling, impatient, waiting for the next trade. The end. The listing felt too good to be true. A fully furnished one-bedroom, modern appliances, central location. The rent, unbelievably cheap. Kate had moved to the city a week ago, barely settled into a friend's couch while job hunting. So when she saw the ad, move-in ready, immediate occupancy, it was fate. Then she saw the lease. Her name was already on it, Kate Manning. The landlord, a pale, twitchy man named Mr. Graves, shrugged it off. "You applied last week, didn't you?" She hadn't, but the place was exactly what she needed. And wasn't that how things work now? Digital signings, autofill, seamless transactions. Maybe she had applied and forgotten, so she moved in. Her first night, the apartment felt too clean. The furniture sat at odd angles as if staged for a photo shoot. The walls were freshly painted, the air heavy with something stale, like an empty house locked for too long. She unpacked quickly, eager to make it feel like hers. But by the second night, things began to change. The thermostat kept resetting. No matter how many times she adjusted it, by 3 a.m. every night, the screen blinked back to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The floor creaked like someone was walking on it. She started losing things. Her keys disappeared only to show up in the fridge. Her phone charger went missing and reappeared neatly coiled in the cutlery drawer. Then, the door. She locked it every night. Checked it twice. But at 3:03 a.m., it was always open, just a crack. Kate started taking pictures before bed, comparing them in the morning. Something was changing. The furniture slightly moved, the rug an inch out of place. On the fourth night, she checked the listing again. It was still up. Same pictures, same move-in ready tagline. Except now, there was a new photo. She was in it. Standing in the living room, staring directly at the camera. Kate tried to call Mr. Graves. No answer. She searched the rental history. There were no records of past tenants. No reviews. No one had ever lived here. But that was impossible. She contacted the rental site support chat. "Hi, I'm trying to remove a listing. The tenant is already in the unit." The reply came immediately. "Tenant status vacated. Listing is active." She typed faster. "I live here. I'm the tenant." The chat box blinked. "Vacancy confirmed. Move-in available immediately." Kate slammed the laptop shut. Her phone buzzed. A notification. It was from the rental app. A new listing update. She opened it with shaking fingers. Tenant has begun transition. Her own photo had changed. She looked blurred, like someone had smeared her face with an eraser. Her breath hitched. The lights flickered. The thermostat clicked. 3 a.m. Something creaked behind her. Kate turned. The mirror in the hallway was tilted back. It hadn't been like that before. She stepped closer. Her reflection was moving wrong. When she raised her hand, it hesitated, lagged, then snapped into place. The listing was right. She was beginning to vacate. She tried to run. She grabbed her coat, her keys, but the front door led to the apartment again. The windows wouldn't open. The walls were closing in. Kate's reflection changed first. Her face began losing detail, her mouth blurred, her hair melting into the background. Her phone erased itself. Contacts gone, photos, blank squares. Then the emails vanished. Her driver's license photo faded. She checked the listing. Tenant has fully vacated. Available immediately. She screamed. She grabbed a knife and slashed at the wall, at the mirror. The wall peeled away. Behind it was a hollow, black void. Inside, she saw shadows moving. People, past tenants, their faces warped and blank. One of them looked like her. No, it was her. She turned, stumbled, tried to run. The thermostat clicked. 3 a.m. The door swung open. Kate stepped through. A new tenant arrived 3 days later. She was young, new to the city, eager for a fresh start. The apartment was fully furnished. The rent was cheap. The lease was already signed in her name. She checked the listing. The last uploaded photo showed a woman standing in the living room, blurred and blank. She thought nothing of it. She moved in. That night, at exactly 3 a.m., the thermostat clicked. The front door opened, and inside the walls, something watched. The end. Had run the late shift on the New York subway for almost 20 years. He knew the tunnels like the back of his hand, could feel the train's rhythms in his bones, and could tell when a passenger was too drunk to make their stop, just by the way they leaned against the poles. So when he stepped into the last car of train 6A at 2:37 a.m. and saw the lone figure sitting with her back to him, something inside him twisted. "Last stop, miss," he called. His voice echoed, tinny and hollow, swallowed by the empty train. The woman didn't move. Darren frowned. Maybe she was asleep, strung out, or worse. He tapped his radio. "Control, I've got a lingering passenger. Gonna do a check." Static. No response. That was weird. He glanced at the overhead security feed in the car. The monitor showed the train completely empty. His breath hitched. That was wrong. He flicked the screen as if a smack would make the pixels realign, but the display remained the same. Empty rows of seats, no one there. But in the real world, she was right there. Darren swallowed hard. "Miss." His voice was smaller now, hesitant. "You okay?" Still no answer. Something about the way she sat, shoulders too rigid, head slightly tilted, like she was listening but not responding, made his skin prickle. A part of him didn't want to walk down that aisle. But another part, the part that had done this job for years, the part that had helped drunks off at the end of the line and kept tweakers from hurting themselves, told him this was just another passenger, another person. Nothing weird, nothing bad. Darren took a step forward, and the train lurched into motion. He grabbed a pole as gravity yanked at his balance. His heart kicked into his throat. He hadn't touched the controls. The train should be off. Control, do you read me? My train just started moving. I did not authorize departure. Silence. The tunnel outside blurred past the windows. Darren ran to the operator's cabin and yanked the emergency brake. Nothing happened. His fingers punched buttons, toggled switches. The console was dead. No response. His pulse pounded. The train was accelerating, faster than it should, faster than possible. The intercom crackled. Please wait, a voice whispered. Your stop is coming soon. A chill slid down Darren's spine. Slowly he turned back toward the car. The woman was still seated, unmoving. But now he could see her reflection in the darkened window across from her. She was grinning, a tight, thin-lipped grin. Her head tilted just slightly too far, like her neck had an extra joint. Darren's gut twisted. Something was wrong. The tunnels outside weren't right. They weren't his tunnels. The graffiti was wrong. The shape of the walls, the curve of the tracks, they didn't match any route he knew. He had been running these tunnels for 20 years. This was not New York. The woman shifted. Darren's breath caught. Slowly, mechanically, she turned her head toward him, but not her body. Her spine didn't twist, her shoulders didn't move, just her head, swiveling inch by inch. His knees almost buckled. The face that looked back at him was his own, Darren Hart. Same sunken eyes, same scar over the brow from when he fell off his bike as a kid. Same mouth, same face. His own voice whispered from her lips. You should sit down, Darren. The ride's not over yet. His heart slammed against his ribs. This wasn't happening. It wasn't real. His body moved before his brain could catch up. He lunged for the emergency exit at the back of the car. The doors shouldn't open in motion, but he grabbed the handle, yanking, pulling. It slid open. Wind howled, thick and unnatural like something alive. Beyond the train, the tunnel wasn't a tunnel anymore. It was endless, a yawning, spiraling nothing. Not black, not white, not even dark. Just wrong. Darren staggered back, slamming the door shut. The woman, him, was standing now. You keep trying this, she said. You always do, but it never works. Darren's pulse stuttered. Always. Her head tilted. You don't remember, do you? The train rocketed forward, the lights overhead flickering. Stations passed by, but they weren't real stations. They were impossible. A platform where people stood frozen, locked in time, their eyes all trained on the train, their mouths open in silent screams. Another where 100 copies of himself sat in the seats, all of them grinning. A third where his mother stood on the platform waving, but her face was missing. Darren's stomach lurched. His doppelganger moved closer. You need to stop fighting it. He backed away. This isn't real, he whispered. Her grin widened. That's what you said the last time. Darren's back hit the door. He reached for his radio again. Control, please. Somebody help me. I am not alone on this train. Static. We know. Darren's blood turned to ice. A new station was coming. A station he recognized. The one from his dreams. The one he had never dared step onto. It loomed ahead. A cavernous thing with pillars that stretched too high. Shadows that moved on their own. He remembered this place. His double leaned in. You should get off this time, she murmured. Maybe you'll break the cycle. Darren's fingers dug into the metal rail. The train screeched as it slowed. His breath came in short gasps. The doors hissed open. Beyond them, nothing. Just a vast, waiting dark. Darren swallowed. The train would keep going if he stayed. He knew that. It would keep running forever, looping back, warping time, making him do this again and again and again. Or he could step off and face whatever waited. The intercom crackled. Final stop, it whispered. Time to go. Darren closed his eyes, took a breath, and stepped into the dark. The end. Ellie's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel. The call had come just before sunset. "We found your son. He's safe." Liam had been missing for nearly 6 hours. She parked outside the small-town police station and ran inside, breathless, half expecting a nightmare. The fluorescent lighting was harsh, buzzing faintly as she searched the room. And then, there he was, sitting on the edge of a bench, his little feet barely touching the floor, was her 8-year-old son. His blonde hair was ruffled, his blue jacket dirtied at the elbows. Ellie let out a sob and rushed forward, falling to her knees in front of him. "Baby, are you okay? Where were you?" Liam blinked slowly. "I'm fine, Mom." His voice was quiet, flat. Ellie swallowed. His small arms wrapped around her, but the hug was stiff, hesitant. He smelled faintly of damp earth, of trees and rain, though the weather had been dry all day. A kind-looking officer leaned down. A woman found him wandering behind a grocery store, confused. He didn't say much, didn't know where he'd been. Ellie clutched her son tighter. "It's okay now. It's over." But that night, as she tucked him into bed, he lay stiffly under the blankets, staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Good night, sweetheart," she whispered. Liam didn't answer. It started with small things. At breakfast, Ellie placed a plate of waffles in front of him, his favorite. He poked at them with his fork, unimpressed. "You love waffles," she said, half laughing. Liam shrugged. "Not really." Ellie frowned. That evening he didn't respond to Bug, the nickname she'd called him since he was a toddler. And the next morning she found him staring at a framed baby picture on the wall. "That's you," she said, smiling. Liam tilted his head. "No, it's not." Her stomach clenched. "Of course it is." His brow furrowed, and something passed over his face. Something confused, maybe even afraid. "I don't think so," he murmured. Then he turned away, leaving Ellie cold. The doubts festered. One night she sat on the floor of her bedroom with an old shoebox, sifting through baby pictures. She traced her fingers over a photo of Liam at 2 years old, standing in the snow, tiny boots pressing into white powder. She stared at his footprints, the roundness of his toes, the shape of the arch. Rushing to the hallway, she grabbed the sneakers Liam had worn when he was found. She pressed them into a sheet of paper, then compared them to the old photos. They were different. Slightly, just slightly, but enough. Her stomach twisted. She rushed to Liam's room and found him asleep, his small body curled under his blankets. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just my stress. And then she saw the note, a crumpled scrap of paper, half hidden under his pillow. Ellie pulled it out, heart pounding. Liam is still out there. I don't know who this is. Her breath hitched. She backed out of the room, nearly stumbling. The paper trembled in her hands. She read it again and again and again. The doctor ran the test twice. "It's strange," he said, adjusting his glasses. "The DNA is very close, extremely close, but there are inconsistencies. The markers don't fully match." Ellie felt lightheaded. What does that mean?" The doctor folded his hands. "I have to ask, Miss Reynolds, are you absolutely sure this is your son?" The room was too small, the walls too bright. Her pulse roared in her ears. "Are you sure this is your son?" She gripped the edge of the desk. Her mind screamed at her to say yes. Of course she was sure, but her mouth wouldn't move. That night, she dreamt of Liam calling for her, his voice distant and frightened. She woke up gasping. The house was silent. A faint shuffle echoed from the hallway. She crept out of bed, heart hammering. The light from Liam's room was still on. She pushed the door open. Liam stood in the center of the room, facing the wall, not moving. "Liam," she whispered. He turned his head slightly, just enough for her to see his profile. His eyes were open. He was watching her. Her skin prickled. "I couldn't sleep," voice soft. Ellie exhaled shakily. "You scared me, sweetheart." Liam didn't blink. The next day she went back to where Liam had been found. The grocery store's parking lot stretched out before her, empty in the midday sun. She wandered behind the dumpsters, searching. A piece of paper fluttered near the curb. She picked it up. Another note. "You're getting too close. Stop." Her blood ran cold. When she turned back to her car, Liam was standing there, waiting, watching. Her breath caught in her throat. His lips curled, just slightly, almost a smile. Ellie barely slept. She dreamt of dark places, of a child's cries. A hollow voice whispering, "It's still out there. Find me." She woke to silence. The house felt empty. She hurried to Liam's room. The bed was made, the covers undisturbed, the closet doors gaped open. Liam was gone. A whimper escaped her throat. She turned frantically, searching, calling his name. She ran to the kitchen, the living room, the backyard, and then she saw it. Sitting in the middle of the floor, a child. Not Liam, a little girl, no older than 8. Her dark hair was matted, her eyes wide and blank. Ellie choked on her breath, stumbling backward. A whisper at her ear. "You should have accepted him. Now it starts again." The girl looked up at her, smiled. Ellie sat in the police station, hands trembling in her lap. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "My son is missing." The officer across from her frowned. "But Miss Reynolds," he gestured to the child sitting beside her. The girl clutched Ellie's sleeve, her tiny hand warm against her skin. "You brought her in this morning. You said this was your daughter." Ellie's breath hitched. The girl's fingers tightened, and she smiled. The end. The rain had been relentless for hours, warping the road into a smear of headlights and broken yellow lines. Marco Alvarez rubbed his tired eyes. There shouldn't be anything out here. His GPS showed a long stretch of nothing between towns. Then he saw it. A convenience store. A single neon sign flickered open 24 hours behind sheets of rain. No other buildings, no gas pumps. Just this. He pulled in. No cars in the lot. No sign of life inside. But when he stepped in, the automatic doors slid open for him. The store smelled too clean, not like bleach, like something wiped blank. Shelves fully stocked, magazines unread, pages too crisp. Bottled water lined up in perfect symmetry. No cashier. Marco grabbed a bottle, ready to leave cash on the counter. Then the intercom crackled. "Thank you for returning." The voice was distorted, metallic, but it said returning. He turned, his pulse quickening. A security monitor blinked behind the counter. It showed him standing in the store, holding the bottle. But the man in the footage wore a different jacket. A scar ran across his cheek. Marco's breath turned shallow. He touched his face. No scar. His gaze drifted to the freezer doors where his reflection didn't move. He bolted for the exit. The neon sign flickered and died. He staggered outside. Cold rain hit cracked pavement. The store was gone. No building, no sign, no glass doors, nothing. Just an empty lot. Marco turned in frantic circles. The receipt was still in his hand, the water bottle real in his grip. Then his phone buzzed. A notification. Transaction approved. $3.49. The store. His stomach turned. Another message appeared. Come back soon. By the time he reached town, his hands had stopped shaking. His mind hadn't. The gas station attendant frowned. Store out there? Man, that's just an empty lot. Marco pulled out his phone to show the receipt, but it was gone. No record, no transaction. But when he opened his car door, a bottle of water was already sitting in the cup holder. Same label, same seal, and a single drop of rain on its surface. Sleep didn't come easily. At 3 a.m., his phone vibrated. A new notification. The store is now open. His breath hitched. He sat up slowly. There, on the motel's nightstand, was the same bottle of water. His pulse thundered in his ears. The phone vibrated again. Last exit attempt, unsuccessful. Marco grabbed his keys and drove. The police humored him. They drove out to the lot. They shone their flashlights through the rain. Nothing. Maybe you dreamed it. One officer joked. Marco's phone buzzed. The store is now open. His breath hitched. He turned, and the store was there. The neon sign glowed steady and bright. The automatic doors slid open just for him. Do you see it? Marco whispered. The officers frowned. One put a hand on his shoulder. See what? Marco turned back to the car's window and froze. Inside the reflection, he was already standing in the store, watching himself. His own voice, distorted through the intercom, whispered from his phone speaker, "Welcome home." Marco stepped forward. The officers said something behind him, but their voices were distant, like echoes across water. He crossed the threshold. The glass doors shut behind him. Inside, everything was the same. The shelves lined up perfectly. The register waiting, the security monitor flickered to life. Marco was on the screen. The scars were deeper now. The neon sign outside flickered off. And in the police dash cam footage, Marco never entered a store. He just vanished. His car was still in the lot, engine running, door wide open. The end. Jordan hated birthdays, not because he was aging. He had long stopped counting the years, but because birthdays were supposed to be shared, and he had no one left to share them with. No family, no real friends, just vague acquaintances who might send an obligatory text, a half-hearted, "Hope you have a good one," before forgetting he existed. So when the envelope arrived, thick, cream-colored, with his full name handwritten in perfect cursive, he almost threw it away. Who would send him something like this? But curiosity won. Inside was an invitation. You are cordially invited to a surprise party in honor of Jordan Morrow's 30th birthday. Come celebrate with us at 8 p.m. Location, 143 Winston Street. No sender, no RSVP. Jordan frowned. He didn't recognize the address. He checked his phone's Maps app. 143 Winston Street wasn't far, but he had no memory of ever being there. It was absurd, and yet the thought of spending the night alone, eating takeout in front of the TV, felt worse. So at 7:45 p.m., he grabbed his coat and left. He told himself it was just curiosity. But deep down, he felt something else, like he had already made a mistake. Jordan arrived at 143 Winston Street just before 8. The building was old but well maintained, black iron railings, a polished brass door handle. It didn't look like a party venue, but when he stepped inside, the scent of vanilla cake and candle wax filled the air. A group of people stood in the warmly lit room chatting. The moment they saw him, they cheered, "Jordan, happy birthday." A woman in a green dress hugged him tightly. A man clapped him on the back. Someone handed him a drink. Smiling faces surrounded him, but Jordan didn't know a single one of them. And yet, they knew him. "You haven't changed at all," laughed a balding man in suspenders. "Man, I still can't believe what you did in high school." "Classic Jordan," chuckled a woman with a glass of wine. "Remember last year when you swore you'd never drink tequila again?" Another guest teased. Jordan forced a smile, his fingers tightening around the glass in his hand. He had never sworn off tequila. He had never done anything classic in high school. His heart pounded. How did they know these things? The walls were decorated with his childhood photos, ones he hadn't seen in years. Candles flickered across a long dining table, a towering birthday cake at the center. 31 candles burned, one too many. "You never missed your birthday before," said a voice behind him. Jordan turned. The host was smiling. Jordan swallowed hard. The host was a tall man, sharply dressed, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Go on," the man gestured to the cake. "Make a wish." The guests watched him, silent now, their eyes bright and expectant. Jordan's skin prickled. "Sorry, but who invited me?" he asked, forcing a chuckle. Laughter rippled through the room. "Jordan, stop messing around," someone said. "You're always the dramatic one." He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't even social. He took a step back. Every exit seemed farther away than before. The walls stretched, the lights too dim, the air thick and warm like a held breath. "I think I should go." The host's smile widened. "You never missed your birthday before." The room tilted. Jordan gripped the table for balance. The candles flickered. Were there more now? 32, 33. The wax dripped, pooling into unreadable symbols on the tablecloth. "Just make a wish, Jordan." His throat was dry. The guests were closer now. Too close. His childhood photos were wrong. Faces he didn't recognize stood beside him. "What is this?" The host exhaled, almost disappointed. "You always ruin the fun." Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Jordan's breath hitched. A low hum filled the air, like the distant buzz of power lines. The guests weren't speaking anymore, but he felt them. Close. Watching. He stumbled backward. His hands groped for the door, for anything, but the space had changed. The walls weren't where they should be. The air was thick, pressing against him. Then the candles flared back to life. Jordan was outside. The night air was cold against his skin. He was running, the building shrinking behind him, its windows glowing like watchful eyes. He didn't stop until he reached his apartment. But something was wrong. His door was different. The color, the number. He hesitated, but his keys slid in effortlessly. Inside, the furniture was unfamiliar. The framed photos on the walls showed a man that looked like him, but wasn't. His breath came fast. "What is this?" He grabbed his wallet, his ID, Daniel Carter. A different name, a different life. Jordan, or Daniel, stared at the reflection in the mirror. The man blinked, and for a second, just a second, it wasn't his face at all. Jordan Daniel sat in silence. The apartment was his. It had always been his. The framed photos proved it. His phone, his emails, his bank account. They all agreed. He had never been Jordan Morrow. His hands trembled as he reached for the mail scattered on the kitchen counter. Bills, advertisements, and then an envelope. Thick, cream-colored. His full name, handwritten in perfect cursive. His breath caught. With numb fingers, he opened it. You are cordially invited to a surprise party in honor of Daniel Carter's 31st birthday. Come celebrate with us at 8 p.m. Location, 143 Winston Street. A whisper of movement. In the mirror across the room, his reflection smiled, but he hadn't moved. The invitation slipped from his hands. The party wasn't over. Not yet. The end. Lisa checked her reflection in the car mirror before stepping out. The house loomed in front of her, 3 stories tall, a sleek modern mansion tucked behind wrought iron gates. The couple had paid extra for last-minute availability. Just overnight, they'd said, she's easy, almost too quiet. Lisa had babysat for years. She knew quiet kids weren't always easy. Sometimes they were the worst ones. The mother answered the door before Lisa could knock. She was tall, sharp-featured, the kind of woman who wore perfume that smelled expensive but cold. Her husband hovered behind her, checking his watch. "You're Lisa," the woman said. Not a question. Lisa nodded, shivering a little as the night air pressed in behind her. "She's already in bed. Don't wake her." Lisa stepped inside and the woman grabbed her wrist. Tight, too tight. "3 rules," she said. "You don't go into the basement, you don't open the bedroom door after midnight, and you don't answer the phone." Lisa forced a smile, rubbing her wrist as the woman finally let go. "Got it," Lisa said, trying to sound casual. The woman didn't smile back. Neither did her husband. The front door clicked shut behind them. The house was too clean, the furniture too stiff, like a model home no one really lived in. Lisa checked on the child first. Her name was Sophie, 6 years old. She lay perfectly still in her bed, not asleep but not really awake either. Her dark hair fanned over the pillow. Her eyes were open. Lisa hesitated in the doorway. "Hey kiddo, I'm Lisa. I'll be here tonight, okay?" Sophie blinked slowly, then so soft Lisa barely heard it. "They always leave." Lisa smiled, tucking the blankets around Sophie. "Grown-ups do that, but I'll be here." Sophie didn't answer. Lisa left the door cracked. She settled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The house was silent, except for the occasional soft creak of old wood. At 11:58, the air felt different, heavier. At midnight, the bedroom door rattled. Lisa sat up, heart pounding. It wasn't the house settling, it was deliberate, like someone was on the other side. Lisa squeezed her hands into fists, probably the kids sleepwalking. It happened. She stood up but didn't move closer. The rattling stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Then from upstairs, Sophie's voice. "She's still hungry." Lisa's stomach turned. She hadn't heard Sophie's footsteps, hadn't heard her get out of bed. But there the girl was, peering down from the railing. Lisa swallowed. "Hey Sophie, you okay?" Sophie tilted her head. "You didn't open the door." Lisa forced a laugh. "Nope, that's the rule, right?" Sophie's small fingers curled around the banister. "That means you'll stay forever." Lisa's blood ran cold. Before she could respond, the phone rang. Not Lisa's phone, the landline. She turned toward the kitchen, where an old-fashioned rotary phone sat on the wall. The ringer was shrill, urgent. Sophie's whisper floated down the stairs. "You shouldn't have let it ring." Lisa ignored her, creeping toward the phone. Her breath caught as she reached out. She stopped. "Don't answer the phone." It rang one last time. Then silence. Lisa turned back toward Sophie, but the girl was gone. Lisa searched the house, panic creeping into her veins. Sophie wasn't in her bed, not in the hallway, not in the kitchen. Lisa checked the basement door, locked. She turned and froze. Sophie stood at the top of the stairs, her small body silhouetted against the dark hallway. Lisa exhaled, pressing a hand to her chest. Jesus, kid, you scared me. Sophie didn't move. Lisa climbed the stairs slowly. Let's get you back to bed, okay? Sophie didn't move until Lisa was close. Then she smiled. Lisa had never seen a 6-year-old smile like that. It was wrong. Sophie's lips barely moved, but Lisa heard her whisper. She's still behind the door. Lisa grabbed Sophie's arm. Hard hammering. That's enough, okay? We're going to bed. Sophie let herself be led, but she giggled as they walked. You didn't listen. Lisa ignored her. She tucked Sophie in, pulling the blankets tight. Good night, Sophie. Sophie watched her. You won't wake up. Lisa left the room quickly, slamming the door behind her. At 3:14 a.m., Lisa woke in the dark. Something wasn't right. Her arms felt strange, heavy. She tried to move and couldn't. Her breath came fast, too fast. Why couldn't she move? The crib bars gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Lisa stared at them, confusion crawling up her throat. Crib bars. She wasn't in bed. She was in a crib. Her chest heaved. She tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't obey. A soft giggle drifted through the room. Sophie. Lisa's breath hitched. She turned her head. She couldn't turn her head. Her body wasn't hers anymore. Footsteps padded closer, tiny bare feet. Sophie peered over the crib's edge. You're not Lisa anymore, Sophie whispered. Lisa tried to scream. No sound came out. Sophie reached into the crib, brushing Lisa's cheek with cold fingers. Shh, she whispered. It's okay. You'll like it here. Lisa's vision swam. The room blurred at the edges. She was slipping away. Sophie leaned in close. They always do. The doorbell rang. The front door opened. Voices murmured. Lisa listened. The new babysitter was here. Footsteps, laughter. Sophie ran to greet her, giggling. Lisa's mind screamed, but the crib held her tight. The last thing she heard before the dark took her was Sophie's soft, delighted whisper. She didn't listen either. The end. David always liked the quiet hum of the post office after hours, the low buzz of the fluorescent lights, the rhythmic shuffle of letters through his hands. It was routine, predictable, safe. Until tonight. His fingers stopped on a single envelope, yellowed with age, its paper brittle at the edges. The address sent a chill through his spine. 127 Sycamore Lane. That house had burned down 20 years ago. No return address, except for one detail that made Dave's stomach turn. The handwriting. His own. He tore the envelope open with shaking fingers, unfolding the brittle letter inside. The ink had bled slightly, as if written in a hurry, but the words were clear. Dave, whatever you do, don't go home tonight. Please, trust me. No signature, no explanation, just those words. His throat tightened. He checked the postage date. Tomorrow. A soft tremor rolled through his hands as he flipped the envelope over and over. A mistake, a prank, but the postmark was legitimate. It had gone through the system. It was real. His mind grasped for an explanation, something rational. Maybe an old letter misplaced for decades, sent before the fire. But that didn't explain the handwriting, and it didn't explain what he saw next. 3:15 a.m. The security camera footage was grainy, black and white, the timestamp blinking in the corner. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the glass door of the post office swung open. A man stepped inside. Dave leaned closer to the screen, a knot of unease curling in his stomach. The man walked with familiarity, moving past the rows of P.O. boxes toward the sorting station. He reached into his coat, pulled out the envelope, and placed it carefully in the stack. Then he turned toward the camera. Dave's breath caught the man's face. His face stared back at him. A second version of himself, dressed in the same uniform, the same jacket, but older. Haggard, eyes dark with something unreadable. Then, just as casually, the man turned and walked toward the door and disappeared. Not out the door, not into the street, just gone. Dave shot up from his chair, the rolling wheels of his office chair screeching against the tile. His pulse pounded in his ears. His body moved before his mind could stop it. Jacket on, keys in hand, out into the night air, cold and sharp against his skin. He had to see it for himself. 3:14 a.m. The post office door was locked. 3:15 a.m. Nothing. The street was empty. The quiet kind of empty that pressed against his ears, thick and suffocating. But when he walked back inside, the letter was already there. Don't go home. His house was only 3 blocks away. He could feel the letter still folded in his pocket as he walked, its weight heavier than paper should be. He should have listened. Every step toward home felt wrong. The street looked the same as it always had. The cracked sidewalk, the old street lamp humming with weak yellow light. But something was different. His house, his home, or what should have been. The lot next door, the one where 127 Sycamore Lane had burned down all those years ago, was still empty, just an overgrown patch of weeds and forgotten wreckage. But his house wasn't his anymore. The porch light was on. A car he didn't recognize sat in the driveway. Curtains in the front window swayed gently as if someone had just passed by. His key didn't fit in the lock. A chill slithered down his spine. He rang the doorbell. A man answered. Middle-aged, unfamiliar, wearing his bathrobe. "Can I help you?" the man asked, brow furrowed. Dave stared, heart hammering. "I live here." The man's face darkened. "I don't know what kind of joke this is, but I've owned this house for 15 years. No, this wasn't right." He stumbled backward, his breath coming too fast. His house, his life. The streetlights flickered. Something in the air shifted like the night itself was exhaling. And then everything went dark the next morning. The sun was warm against his face when Dave opened his eyes. His back ached from where he lay on a porch, a different porch, not his. He sat up too fast, his head spinning. The house before him was unfamiliar, but as he turned his gaze, dread curled deep in his chest. The empty lot next to him wasn't empty anymore. It was his house, perfectly intact, as if it had never burned down. His breath caught in his throat. A woman stepped outside, a neighbor, one he'd known for years. She waved. "Morning, Dave," she called, just like she always had. But something in her eyes was off, too certain. "Hope you're finally settling in after all these years." The letter in his pocket was gone, but he already knew what it had said. Don't go home. But he had. And now, this was his home. It always had been. Right? Dave swallowed, staring at the house, the wrong house, the one that had replaced his entire past. And across the street, the post office stood waiting for him to deliver the letter, because tomorrow night at 3:15 a.m. he would walk in and disappear. The end. The bell above the Everwood Inn's entrance gave a cheerful chime as Olivia stepped inside. A cozy, dimly lit lobby stretched before her. Plush burgundy carpets, warm mahogany paneling, a flickering fireplace. The scent of old books and lavender lingered in the air. She approached the front desk, where a man in a neatly pressed vest greeted her with a too-wide smile. "Miss Olivia," he said, sliding a single brass key across the polished wood. There was no room number. "Which room is this for?" she asked, running her thumb over the worn key's surface. The receptionist's smile didn't waver. "It's yours." Olivia hesitated but took the key. As she turned, she noticed the guest book on the counter. Every signature was hers. A trick of the mind, she reasoned, heading down the hall. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. Candles flickered in sconces, their flames dancing with a breathless stillness. Doors lined the walls, all identical, all unnumbered. A woman in a long, faded dress shuffled past. As Olivia approached, the woman gripped her wrist with cold fingers. "Whatever you do," the woman whispered, "don't ask for directions." Olivia recoiled. "What?" But the woman had already continued down the hall, her footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. Her own door was at the very end. Had the hallway always been this long? She turned the key, stepped inside. The room was beautiful. Antique furniture, a four-poster bed, lace curtains framing a window that overlooked the misty countryside. A faint hum filled the air, like a whisper just out of reach. She closed the door, exhausted. The key had vanished from her hand. That evening, she dined alone in the candlelit dining hall. Other guests sat at their own tables, eating in peculiar silence. A waiter placed a steaming plate in front of her. Roast lamb, rosemary potatoes, red wine. But I didn't order. The waiter bowed and stepped away. The meal was delicious. But as soon as she swallowed the last bite, a new plate was placed before her. The exact same dish. Across the room, a man with hollow eyes met her gaze. He lifted his fork without chewing, as if going through the motions of a meal he'd eaten 1,000 times. Unease curled around her ribs. She pushed her plate away and left the dining hall. She stopped by the front desk. A different clerk stood there, this one older, his hands trembling slightly as he poured tea. She placed her palms flat on the counter. "How long have I been here?" The old man sighed, almost pitying. "Years." She let out a breathless laugh. "No, I just checked in this afternoon." The clerk tilted his head. "Did you?" A gust of wind whispered through the lobby. The pages of the guest book fluttered open. Olivia's eyes fell on a signature. Olivia Marsh, February 12, 1989. Her throat tightened. This had to be a mistake. She stumbled back from the counter, bumping into a man passing by. He looked just like the hollow-eyed diner guest from earlier. "You should stop fighting it," he murmured. "We all did." The walls seemed closer. She ran. She sprinted toward the main doors. The bell above the entrance gave its familiar chime as she shoved through and stepped back into the lobby. The receptionist smiled at her. Checking in, she turned sharply, hallway stretching before her once more. "No, no, no." She pressed herself against the nearest wall, chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. A scent of lavender choked her. Shaking, she forced herself to look at the guest book again. Every name was hers. Dozens of entries. Some inked, some smudged with age, some so old they had nearly faded. Her hands trembled as she flipped to the last entry. It was in her own handwriting. "If you're reading this, stop trying to leave." Her stomach dropped. The ink was fresh. Olivia turned away, heart hammering. No, she would not become another ghost in this place. She ran down the endless halls, past silent guests who barely turned to look at her. She climbed staircases that twisted in upon themselves, bursting through doors that led to more doors. Somewhere in the depths of the hotel, she found a room she had never seen before. Inside, her suitcase sat at the foot of an old bed. Dust covered everything. The air smelled of her own perfume, but faded, aged. And there, on the nightstand, was a photograph of herself, decades younger. The realization hit like ice in her veins. She had checked in long ago. She had spent years trying to escape, and every time, she failed. Somewhere deep inside, she had already given up. A bell chimed in the lobby. Olivia stood behind the front desk, smoothing out the collar of her uniform. The new guest stepped in, her suitcase rolling behind her. A familiar expression of uncertainty clouded her face. The receptionist slid a brass key across the counter. No number. "Welcome to Everwood Inn," Olivia said, smiling just a little too wide. The end. Max found the grandfather clock in a dimly lit thrift shop wedged between of dusty records and a shelf of broken lamps. It stood tall, its wooden frame scratched and faded, its brass pendulum frozen in time. The price tag, scrawled in shaky handwriting, read, $20, final sale. "That can't be right," Max muttered. The old man behind the counter shrugged. "Take it or leave it." Max took it. That night he set the clock against the far wall of his apartment, admiring its eerie elegance. It wasn't ticking, but he figured he could fix that later. At midnight he woke to a noise, a soft, rhythmic tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock was running, only the hands weren't moving forward. They were counting down. 72 hours. Max unplugged the clock. It kept ticking. He removed the back panel, searching for hidden batteries. There were none. By morning it had reached 684012. At work, the unease settled into his bones. He scoured the internet for the manufacturer, turning up nothing. No company, no blueprints, no record of a clock like this existing. By the 48-hour mark, things got worse. His best friend Danny ignored his texts. When Max called, Danny's voice was confused, wary. "Who is this?" "It's Max. Quit screwing around, man." A pause. Then low and uncertain, "I don't know a Max." Max laughed nervously. "Yeah, okay. Real funny. I was at your place last week, idiot." "Danny." The line went dead. Max stared at his phone, cold washing over him. He tried calling again, straight to voicemail. That night he went through old texts, conversations with Danny, photos from years of friendship. He sent screenshots. No reply. It was as if Max had never existed. At 24 hours his reflection began to fade. He noticed it in the bathroom mirror first. A slight blur around the edges of his face, like bad reception on an old TV. At first he blamed the lighting. He turned on his phone flashlight, angling it at the mirror. No change. He pressed a hand to the glass. His reflection didn't respond. He turned his head. The reflection stayed still. Max staggered back. He grabbed his phone, switching to the selfie camera. Nothing but the empty room. His pulse hammered, heart pounding. He pulled up a photo of himself from last week. He was still there, smiling at a bar with friends. He snapped a new picture. Nothing. He tried again. Different angles, different rooms, the same result. At 12 hours, strangers stopped noticing him. A waitress at the diner walked right past him, refilling everyone else's coffee but leaving his cup untouched. "Excuse me," Max said. She didn't respond. He waved a hand in front of her face. Nothing. The man at the booth beside him glanced up, his brow furrowing. "Who are you talking to?" Max's stomach twisted. He shoved his chair back, the legs screeching against the floor. No one looked up. No one reacted at all. He ran outside, nearly colliding with a man in a suit. The man turned, scowled slightly, then kept walking. like Max was a breeze against his shoulder, barely noticed, already forgotten. Max grabbed the sleeve of a woman passing by. "Please," he choked. "Tell me you can see me." She flinched. Her eyes darted to where his hand should be, but she saw nothing. She pulled away, faster now, walking briskly, muttering under her breath. Max stood in the middle of the street, heart hammering. He wasn't invisible. He was being erased. By 3 hours, Max's thoughts started slipping like water through a sieve. He struggled to remember his mother's voice, his childhood home, what color his eyes were. The clock ticked on. Desperate, he tried smashing it with a hammer. The moment the metal struck wood, the numbers flickered. It had stolen more time. Max let out a strangled cry, stumbling back, his grip tightening around the hammer. He raised it again and froze. The numbers had changed. 147. He hadn't struck it again. He had only thought about it. His breath hitched. He clutched his chest, feeling the thrum of his heart, the warmth of his own skin. He was still here, but the clock, it knew, it had heard him, it was aware. A cold, foreign dread coiled in his stomach. He dropped the hammer. At 10 minutes, he sat on the floor staring at the clock. Tick, tock. The numbers burned into his vision. 58. It was too late. He was fading. Memories unraveled like old film reels, flickering, burning out. He tried to picture his brother, the apartment he had lived in before this, his own name. The clock read Dintelf. His vision blurred. The room darkened. There was no one left to call. No one left who would remember him. And worst of all, he was no longer sure if he remembered himself. The clock stopped, frozen. Max exhaled, his body trembling. He was still here. He had survived. The silence in the room was deafening. His fingers twitched against the floor. His breaths came in uneven bursts, and then, with a soft, deliberate click, the hands began moving, but not backward, forward. Max's breath hitched. It wasn't counting his time anymore. It was counting someone else's. Somewhere in the city, another clock had just started ticking. A stranger, an innocent, unaware, unlucky. Max let out a hollow laugh, his voice rasping, barely real. He had won nothing. The clock did not stop. It simply moved on. He wondered who would find it next. Would they realize in time? Would they fight it? Or like him, would they simply fade away, erased, forgotten? Max turned to the clock one last time, its polished surface reflecting nothing at all. He whispered the only thing left in his fading mind. Good luck. The end. Daniel had always been good at forgetting, or at least pretending. He buried the past under routines, work, TV, the occasional drink. It worked until the night he got lost. The alley was too narrow and too quiet. A single flickering sign whispered, "Memories for sale." It looked like a pawn shop, shelves packed with dusty trinkets, glass jars, old books. A man behind the counter, pale, eyes like polished stones, watched him. "You buy one, you live it," the man said. "You sell one, it's gone." Daniel almost laughed. A joke. A scam. But curiosity had always been his weakness. He picked up a tiny vial labeled, "First Bike Ride." A child's scrawl. How much? $10. Cheap for a lie. He paid, left, and forgot about it until the next morning. He woke with the crisp memory of his father's hands on his shoulders, steadying the bike, the wobble of the wheels, the rush of wind, the scrape on his knee. Except his father never taught him to ride, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, heart hammering. The memory felt real, too real. He could recall the smell of freshly cut grass, the sting of the fall. But he had never owned a bike. His father, he barely remembered him at all. He spent the morning testing himself, searching old photos, calling his sister. "Hey, do you remember when Dad taught me to ride a bike?" Silence, then confusion. "Dad never taught you that," she said. "You never learned." Daniel hung up, stomach twisting. The shop, that thing he bought, was it possible? That evening he returned. The shopkeeper was waiting, hands folded like he'd expected Daniel. "You're back," he said, smiling. Daniel hesitated. "I want to sell one." The man slid a thin notebook across the counter. "Write it down." Daniel gripped the pen, uncertain. What to erase? His mind swam with buried things, breakups, failures, grief. And then the answer was obvious. His mother's funeral. The words bled onto the page. The shopkeeper took it, tore it out. The paper curled at the edges, then darkened, disintegrated. Daniel felt lighter, free. He left, almost giddy. But that night, as he stared at an old family photo, his mother's face blurred at the edges, and by morning he couldn't remember what she looked like at all. Daniel stood in front of the photo, tracing his fingers over the empty space where his mother's face should be. His father was there, his sister too. But the woman beside them, she was just a shape now, a smudge of absence. He panicked, ransacked drawers, old albums, even his phone. No images of her remained, no texts, no emails, not even her name in his contacts. His mind spun, grasping for memories, but all he found were holes. Had she had dark hair, a soft voice, a perfume like oranges? He couldn't be sure. Desperate, he ran back to the alley. But the store, gone. Only a brick wall where the door had been. His stomach twisted. He hurried home, breath shallow. But stepping into his apartment, something was wrong. Photos lined the walls, ones he didn't recognize. Birthday parties, weddings, vacations, but he wasn't in them. And yet, as he stared, a terrible feeling crawled over him. He knew these people. Their names danced on the tip of his tongue, emotions stirring in his chest. Love, nostalgia, regret, memories he had never lived. And in the mirror across the room, his reflection stared back, wearing someone else's eyes. Daniel staggered backward, heart slamming against his ribs. His reflection didn't move right. The eyes weren't his, too light, too unfamiliar. He grabbed a photo off the wall, a wedding, a beaming bride, a groom in a crisp suit. His fingers traced the man's face. It should be a stranger, but deep in his bones he knew this was his wedding. Except he had never been married. Memories surfaced like gasping fish, holding hands on a rainy street. A whispered, "I love you" in the dark. A child's laughter. His child. His throat tightened. These weren't his memories, or were they? The shop, the transactions, what had he done? A cold sweat slicked his back. He bolted from the apartment down the streets, desperate for the alley. It had to be there. He clawed at the bricks, breath ragged. "Give them back," he shouted. Silence, only the wind rustling. His fingers curled, nails scraping stone. No door, no store, no way back. A deep gnawing dread settled in his chest. He wasn't Daniel anymore. He didn't even know who he had become. Daniel returned home, or whoever he was now did. The photos on the wall stared back. Smiling faces, strangers, family, his. He couldn't be sure. His phone buzzed. A name flashed on the screen. Emily. His hands shook as he answered. "Hey," a woman's voice said. Warm, familiar. "Are you picking up the kids, or should I?" His throat clenched. His mind wanted to reject it. But deep inside, something stirred. A memory, small hands tugging at his sleeve, a child's laughter, bedtime stories. The reflection in the dark window watched him. a stranger in his skin. Somewhere out there, the real Daniel was gone. And the worst part, you didn't even miss him. The end. Lucas stood in the doorway of his new home, inhaling the scent of fresh paint and dust. It wasn't much, just a small one-story house with creaky floors and outdated fixtures. But it was his. No roommates, no shared walls, just him. The first night he fell asleep easily, the quiet unfamiliar but comforting. When he woke up, something felt off. His kitchen table was an inch to the left. A book he'd left on the counter was on the floor, probably just fatigue messing with his memory. But the next morning, the table had moved another inch. The chair was slightly rotated. A picture frame he'd hung in the hallway was now crooked. Lucas frowned, adjusting everything back to where it belonged. He told himself he was just being careless, that he must be bumping things without realizing. By the third morning, the house itself had started to change. The hallway felt longer. The light switch by his bedroom door was missing, and when he went to the bathroom, he hesitated. He could have sworn the sink had been on the left side of the room, not the right. His stomach twisted. He didn't know what disturbed him more, the changes themselves, or the fact that part of him kept second-guessing whether things had always been that way. Maybe I'm just exhausted. That night, he barely slept, jerking awake at every creak of the house. When he finally drifted off, it was with his phone clutched in his hand, recording audio. The next morning, he played back the recording. For hours, nothing but the soft hum of the fridge. Then around 3 a.m., a noise, a low dragging sound like furniture scraping across the floor. Then another, and another. Lucas swallowed hard. He checked the house. The coffee table had moved a full foot. The bedroom door, his bedroom door, was wider than it had been before. This wasn't sleepwalking. This wasn't forgetfulness. Something was moving his house. Or worse, his house was moving itself. That night he set up cameras. One in the living room, one in the hallway, one in his bedroom, pointed at his sleeping form. Lucas lay in bed, heart hammering, the red light of the camera blinking in the dark. He tried not to think about what he might see in the morning. When he woke up, the first thing he noticed was the silence. The second was that his bedroom window now faced a solid brick wall. The third was that his cameras were gone. His stomach clenched. He stumbled out of bed, ran to the living room. The front door was missing. In its place, a blank stretch of drywall. Lucas screamed. He pounded on the wall where the door had been. This isn't happening. This isn't real. The house groaned around him. The walls seemed to breathe. He sprinted to the back door. It wasn't there. There was no door, no windows, nothing but seamless, suffocating walls. The only way out was through the hallway, except the hallway was wrong. It was longer now, stretching into impossible distance. The walls on either side curved inward like a throat closing around him. He ran. The further he went, the narrower the hallway became. The ceiling pressed lower. He gasped for air. Then he saw it. A shadow moved at the end of the corridor, stepping into the dim light. Not a person, not even close. It had too many joints, its limbs bending the wrong way, its head tilted, too smooth, too featureless. Lucas froze. The thing didn't walk toward him. It didn't have to. The hallway shortened. The walls slid forward. The house was collapsing, folding, pressing him toward the thing at the end. Lucas turned, ran back the way he came, except there was no back. The hallway was gone. There was only the thing. It didn't move, but he felt it reaching for him. The house sighed. The walls pressed in. Lucas opened his mouth to scream and woke up. He gasped, sitting up in bed, drenched in sweat. A nightmare, just a nightmare. Then he looked around. There were no windows, no doors, just smooth white walls stretching endlessly around him. And in the corner a camera blinked red, recording the end. The radio sat on the thrift store shelf like it had been waiting for her. It was old, at least from the 1950s, its wooden frame dulled with age, its dial thick with grime. When Grace touched it, a strange hum vibrated under her fingertips, faint, almost imperceptible, not electrical, more like something breathing beneath the surface. She shivered but tucked it under her arm. She loved restoring broken things, turning the forgotten into something that worked again. Maybe that's why she'd been drawn to it. The cashier, an old man with fogged-over eyes, paused as she set the radio on the counter. His fingers hovered over the register, then curled back slightly, like he was reconsidering. "You sure you want this one?" he asked. Grace raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, why?" The old man's gaze drifted past her, out the grimy thrift store window. For a moment his mouth twitched like he wanted to say something, but instead he just muttered, "No refunds." That night, she set the radio on her kitchen table, the scent of dust and time-worn wood filling the apartment. She took her time cleaning it, gently scrubbing away years of neglect. The moment she turned the dial, static filled the room, thick and layered like it was filtering through something dense. No music, no stations, just an ever-present suffocating hiss. Then, deep beneath the static, a whisper, "Hello." Grace's stomach clenched. The voice was faint, submerged in a sea of noise, probably interference from an AM station, she told herself. Late-night talk radio or something. But when she turned the dial, the whisper followed. Each night, the voices got clearer. At first, they spoke in fragments, half-formed sentences, cut-off words. On the fourth night, they said her name, Grace. Her pulse kicked up. She glanced around her empty apartment, throat dry. Grace is looking at the radio. The hair on her arms rose. She turned the volume down, but the voice kept speaking. "She's afraid." She unplugged the radio. The dial still glowed. She threw a blanket over it and went to bed with her heart hammering. But even from beneath the covers, she swore she could hear it whispering. One of the voices sounded just like her. On the seventh night, she snapped. She grabbed the radio with trembling hands, yanked open the window, and hurled it onto the street below. The wooden frame splintered against the pavement, pieces scattered into the darkness. Grace pressed her forehead against the window pane, exhaling a shaky breath. It was over. It had to be. Then her phone buzzed. Slowly she turned. The screen was cracked from where she had dropped it earlier that week, but the notification was clear. A voice message. Her hands trembled as she pressed play. The whisper leaked through the speaker. "Why did you do that?" Her stomach lurched. Her TV flickered on. A dead black screen, but through the static, the whispers slithered back. The voices had moved. She turned off her phone, unplugged the TV, sat in the darkness, gripping the edges of her seat. Then she heard it, a voice speaking from somewhere inside the apartment. Her gaze darted to the bathroom mirror. Her reflection didn't move. By the 10th day, she hadn't slept. She had smashed her phone, ripped the TV from the wall, covered every reflective surface with blankets. It didn't matter. The voices had burrowed into the walls now. She tried leaving, but the world outside was wrong. The people, their heads twitched slightly too much. Their eyes lingered too long. The streetlights buzzed louder than they should, and every screen in the store windows flickered with static. The world was badly tuned. She ran back to her apartment, bolting the door. Her chest heaved as she grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed them into her laptop. The screen cracked, distorted, but before it went black, a final message flickered. You were never meant to hear us. Now, we have to make you one of us. Her vision blurred. The walls around her shimmered, warped. The air felt thick, suffocating, like she was sinking into something unseen. A text notification appeared on her ruined phone. Look behind you. The bathroom mirror was uncovered. Her reflection wasn't facing the same direction. Her own voice whispered from its unmoving lips. Come closer. They found Grace's apartment weeks later. The lights were on. Every electronic device, TV, radio, laptop was shattered. The windows had been painted black. She was gone. There was no sign of struggle, no forced entry, no blood. It was like she had simply stepped out of reality. The only thing left untouched was the radio. It sat on the kitchen table, perfectly intact. The dial glowed softly, waiting. At the thrift shop, a man browsing the shelves picked it up, brushing dust from its surface. The cashier, an old man with fogged-over eyes, hesitated. His fingers hovered over the register, and for a moment it looked like he might say something. Instead, he just muttered, "No refunds." The end. Olivia found the photo while clearing out her grandmother's house. The old woman had been a hoarder of memories, stuffing decades into dust-choked albums, faded Polaroids curling at the edges. Olivia flipped through them, familiar faces staring back. Christmas mornings, summer vacations, birthdays with lopsided cakes. Then she turned a page and stopped. A photograph she'd never seen before. She was in it. It showed her, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing between her parents on the front porch of their old house. She was smiling, but something was wrong. She didn't remember the moment. She didn't own the dress she was wearing, a pale yellow thing with lace trim, and her mother's hand on her shoulder. The fingers were too long. Olivia squinted, brought the album closer. The photo had the grainy warmth of a disposable camera, but the more she looked, the more it unsettled her. Her father's arm around her was stiff, his expression strained. Her mother's face, had her mother always smiled that wide? A slow sickness crawled up Olivia's spine. She turned the album toward the dim light of the bedroom. No notes on the back, no dates, just the three of them, posed like mannequins. She ran her thumb over the glossy surface. This isn't right. She pulled out her phone and snapped a picture, then took the album downstairs. Her father was in the living room, sorting through old boxes of bills and letters. "Hey, Dad," she said. He looked up, eyes tired. "What is it, Liv?" She handed him the album, open to the picture. His face drained of color so fast she thought he might pass out. "That's not the photo we took," he whispered. The room tightened. "What do you mean?" His hand hovered over the image, fingers twitching. We had a photo just like this," he said. "Same day, same spot, but that's not it." "What are you talking about?" He stared at it like it might change if he blinked too hard. "Your mother wasn't smiling like that." His voice dropped lower. "And you weren't in yellow." Olivia felt cold all over. Then where is the real one? Her father shook his head. I don't know, but this, he swallowed hard, slamming the album shut. This isn't right. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. The photo stuck in her mind, her mother's warped grin, her own childhood face frozen in an expression she didn't remember making. The house was too quiet, the air too still. At 2:36 a.m. her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Stop looking for her. We fixed it once. A scream knotted in her throat. She shot upright in bed, staring at the glowing screen. Her. She checked the message again, then looked at the photo still saved in her gallery. Her breath caught. The photo had changed. It was the same picture, but her parents were gone. Now she stood alone on the porch. Her smile was wider. Her shadow stretched unnaturally long behind her. Her phone slipped from her fingers. She ran downstairs, heart pounding, but the album was missing. The table where she'd left it was bare, the only thing in its place, a single scrap of paper. Shaking, she picked it up. We told you not to look. The words were written in her grandmother's handwriting. The next morning, Olivia packed her bags. She didn't care about the rest of the house, the furniture, the old letters. She was leaving. Her father sat stiffly at the kitchen table, drinking his coffee with shaking hands. I have to go, she said. I can't stay here. He nodded, eyes dark and sunken. As she reached the front door, she hesitated. Dad, she said. Who was she? Her father didn't answer at first. Then, without looking at her, he said, You were our second chance. Olivia's pulse thundered. What? His hands tightened around the coffee mug. You don't remember, do you? He said. You were sick, Olivia. You were slipping away. His voice broke. We didn't want to lose you. She took a step back. Dad, what are you talking about? The photo was the last thing she left behind. Terror gripped her ribs. Who? But her father only shook his head. I don't know what they gave us, he whispered. But you came back, and you were ours again. The walls of the house seemed to lean in. Olivia staggered onto the porch, her breath coming fast and shallow. The same porch from the photo. The same spot where she had stood, or where something else had. She scrambled into her car, gripping the wheels so tight her knuckles ached. She didn't look back at the house, didn't wait for her father to say anything else. She drove. She didn't stop until she was hours away. Her phone turned off, the house behind her, nothing but a memory she would never speak of again. A week later, Olivia finally worked up the nerve to turn her phone back on. No new messages, no missed calls. Relief swam through her, weak but present. She was safe. It was over. That night, she curled up in her apartment, lights on, doors locked. She opened her phone gallery, thumb hovering over the photo she had taken, but it was gone. In its place was a new picture, a family portrait. Her parents sat on a couch, smiling warmly, her father's arm around her mother, and between them sat a girl in a pale yellow dress. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her eyes were wide, dark, filled with something hollow and wrong. And beneath the photo, in small letters, was a caption she knew she hadn't written. She wants to come back. The end. The road stretched endlessly ahead, dark ribbons of asphalt curling into the hills. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. The gas gauge hovered near empty, and his phone, lifeless in the passenger seat, had given up an hour ago. No service, no map, no clue where he'd taken a wrong turn. Somewhere between exhaustion and frustration, he spotted it, a signpost, rusted and barely legible under the flickering glow of a street lamp. Welcome to Graymore. Marcus had never heard of it. Not on any map he'd seen, not in any travel guide. But right now, a town meant gas, food, and maybe a bed for the night. He pulled in. The main street was unsettlingly still. A row of dimly lit buildings lined the road, a general store, a library, a diner. At the very end, a gas station with a single pump. The station looked old-fashioned, with a tin roof and a neon open sign buzzing in the window. As Marcus pulled up, the old bell above the door jingled, announcing his arrival. A man in overalls emerged from the shadows behind the counter. He was grinning, even in Marcus. Marcus froze. The man's face was familiar, too familiar, but Marcus couldn't place him. How did he know my name? Before Marcus could speak, the attendant stepped forward, nodding toward the pump. The usual, right? Full tank? Marcus swallowed. Sure. His pulse quickened as he watched the man fill the tank. Something wasn't right. Marcus stepped inside the gas station while the attendant pumped his gas. The place smelled of dust and old paper. The shelves were lined with outdated snack brands, their packaging slightly off, like a memory misremembered. At the counter, an old radio crackled to life. A voice, familiar yet distorted, murmured through the static. Marcus Grayson, lost and found. Come home, Marcus. His stomach dropped. Hey, Marcus called out. What station is this? The attendant didn't look up. Same one we always play. Marcus's hand clenched around a packet of gum. Right, of course. The bell jingled. Another customer entered. A woman in her 60s, her silver hair pinned back in neat curls. She smiled. Marcus, I thought you weren't coming home till next week. He stiffened. I think you've got me confused with someone else. Her smile faltered, then returned, softer, pitying. Oh, honey, she said, shaking her head. You always were a forgetful one. Marcus turned to the attendant, expecting confusion, maybe an apology. But the man only nodded, as if the woman were stating a simple fact. Marcus forced a laugh. Look, I think there's been a mix-up. I'm just passing through. Neither of them responded. A long, heavy silence stretched between them before the woman spoke again. You always say that. Marcus grabbed his keys and hurried out. The car engine rumbled to life. His heart pounded as he pulled onto the road, heading toward the highway. He had to get out of here. He drove for 10 minutes, then 20. But somehow, no matter how far he went, the road always curved him back to Graymore's town square. The gas station, the diner, the same dimly lit streets. A new neon sign flickered in the diner window. Welcome home, Marcus. He slammed on the brakes. Marcus's breath came in short, uneven gasps. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. This isn't possible. He turned the car around, retracing his path, watching every landmark. The broken mile marker, the crooked mailbox, the old oak tree. He memorized them, counted them. But each turn, each stretch of road led him back to the same place, the town square. He yanked open the car door and stepped out. The air felt thick, humming with something unseen. A group of people stood outside the diner now, watching him. They weren't speaking, just standing, staring. Marcus turned away, forcing himself toward the library. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the scent of yellowed pages and dust. The shelves loomed high, books stacked in uneven towers. Something pulled at him, an instinct, a whisper in his bones. He moved deeper, fingers trailing along the spines of old newspapers. Then he saw it. A newspaper dated 20 years in the future. The ink was faded, the edges brittle, but the headline was clear. Local man Marcus Grayson found dead March 7th, 2025. Tomorrow's date. His knees buckled, the room tilted, his name, his death already printed, already decided. Behind him, the door creaked open. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Marcus spun around. A figure stood in the doorway. A man dressed in dark slacks and a button-up shirt. Familiar. Too familiar. Marcus's throat tightened. The man stepped forward into the dim light. It was him, not a look-alike, not a relative. Him, older, tired, eyes hollowed by time. Marcus, the older version of himself, said, voice calm, "You need to listen." Marcus stumbled back, knocking over a stack of books. His own face stared back at him. The same jawline, the same scar above his eyebrow from when he fell off his bike as a kid. This isn't real. The older Marcus sighed. It wasn't for me either, until it was. He held up the newspaper. Tomorrow, it happens tomorrow. No, you can't leave. His older self's voice dropped. Not yet. Marcus's hands curled into fists. Then how are you here? The older version of him hesitated, a flicker of something. Regret, resignation. I didn't listen, he said finally. I fought it, I ran. His voice broke. I died. The air seemed to hum around them. The library walls felt closer, the room darker. Marcus's heartbeat pounded in his ears. What happens if I don't fight it? He whispered. His older self stared at him. Outside, the townspeople were gathering, waiting. Something loomed in the silence, something unseen, waiting for his choice. Marcus looked down at the newspaper again, his obituary, his death, already written. The town waited outside. The air was thick, humming with something unseen, something inevitable. His older self took a slow step back. It's your choice. Marcus exhaled shakily. Was there ever a choice? The door creaked. The townspeople stood in perfect stillness, their eyes dark pools reflecting him. Expecting, knowing. Marcus stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the air shifted. A weight lifted. The world exhaled. The streetlights flickered. The town blurred, like ink washing away. As the ground trembled beneath him, Marcus had a fleeting thought. Maybe he had never been lost. Maybe he had simply come home. And then, darkness. The end. Taylor adjusted the lanyard around her neck, staring at her work ID. The glossy plastic reflected the office's fluorescent lights, and her own face stared back. Only it wasn't quite right. The photo showed her with deeper set eyes, faint crow's feet, and hair slightly shorter than she had ever worn it. That was wrong. She had taken this job 2 days ago. She chalked it up to an HR mix-up. Maybe they used an old LinkedIn picture. It was a massive company after all. Bureaucracy was bound to be messy. At her desk, she settled into the monotony of emails and spreadsheets. It was a bland, open-floor office filled with the low hum of ringing phones and hushed conversations. The kind of place where employees became indistinct shapes in business casual, where everything felt half-lived. Hey, a voice chirped from the next cubicle. A woman leaned over the divider. How long have you been here? Taylor smiled. Oh, just started 2 days ago. The woman, Lucy, if Taylor remembered correctly, laughed. No, seriously, you've been here for years. A pause. Taylor forced a chuckle. I think you're mixing me up with someone else. Lucy frowned. No, She trailed off, staring at Taylor like she was a half-forgotten dream. Her lips parted as if to say more, but then she just shook her head. Never mind. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The next day, her manager, Greg, walked past her desk and clapped her shoulder. Good to have you back, Taylor. Wasn't sure if you'd ever return. Greg grinned. Your leave of absence. You know, we were all starting to thank you. He hesitated. Well, never mind. Glad you're back. Taylor sat there, stiff as stone. She had never taken a leave of absence. She had only just started. She pulled up her employee profile in the company database. Her hire date was listed as 10 years ago. No, that wasn't right. Her email archive stretched back a decade. Meeting invites, performance reviews, memos she didn't remember writing. Her hands trembled. Had she worked here before? She rushed to HR. The rep, a man named Devin, tapped away at his computer while she sat across from him. Okay, Devin said, squinting at the screen. Taylor, here we go. Hired March 7th, 10 years ago. That all looks good. She leaned forward. No, I was hired this week. He blinked at her, confused. That can't be right. He turned the monitor toward her. There it was. The records, pay stubs, benefits enrollments, a full decade of employment history. I don't understand, she stammered. That's not possible. Devin chuckled nervously. Maybe you're just forgetting. Long tenure here can feel like a lifetime. Taylor's breath hitched. She stood abruptly. I need to go home, she muttered. She didn't wait for a response. At the exit, security stopped her. She turned to see a heavy-set guard checking a clipboard. You already put in your notice years ago, he said. What? He gestured to the clipboard. See, you resigned a long time ago, but you never left. Taylor's stomach plummeted. That's not true. She tried to push past him, but his grip was firm. You should get back to your desk, he said, voice eerily gentle. You don't want to cause a scene. Taylor's head spun. She stumbled backward, nodding weakly. This wasn't happening. Back at her desk, Lucy peeked over the cubicle wall. You okay? Taylor shook her head. Lucy hesitated. Then, after glancing around, she whispered, Do you feel stuck? Taylor's skin prickled. Like, Lucy continued, every time you try to leave, something stops you. You too. Lucy exhaled, relieved. I thought I was losing my mind. I tried to quit 2 years ago. Got a better offer. But she rubbed her arms, as if trying to shake off a deep chill. I never made it to the exit. I just kept showing up. Taylor's mouth was dry. Have you? She struggled to say it. Have you checked your hire date? Lucy nodded, eyes shadowed with something hollow and awful. It says I've been here 24 years. Taylor's pulse hammered. What do we do? She whispered. Lucy pressed her lips together. Maybe there is a way out, but we have to find out what's keeping us here. That night, Taylor stayed late. The office emptied, leaving only the hum of servers and the distant clatter of cleaning crews. She crept to HR, pulling open drawers, rifling through records. Then she found it. A termination list. A list of names with dates beside them. Some crossed out, some not. Her name was on it. Terminated. March 7th, 10 years ago. Her stomach dropped. Her breath hitched. Something moved in the shadows. A figure loomed in the doorway, tall, expressionless, in a black suit. It said, You shouldn't be here. Taylor staggered back. Who are you? The figure took a step closer. Its features were wrong, like an uncanny imitation of a person. You were removed from the system, it said, but you remained. Taylor's hands shook. You are a ghost of the corporation, the figure intoned. A redundancy, a loose thread. It reached for her. Taylor ran. She didn't stop running. Past the cubicles, the break room, the empty desks. Security would stop her. The system would stop her. But she kept running. And then the glass doors opened. Cool night air hit her face. She gasped, Stepping outside, she turned. The office loomed behind her, dark and faceless. Something watched from the windows. She knew it wasn't over. She knew, because inside, her desk was still there, waiting. Her work ID was still active. The system still recognized her. Somewhere, deep within the corporate machine, Taylor was still an employee. She just wasn't sure which version of herself had actually made it out. The end. Jake barely notices her at first. Just a dark figure at the edge of his headlights, standing too still by the side of the road. The stretch of highway is empty, miles of unbroken darkness swallowing the asphalt. Against his better judgment, he slows down. She's young, maybe late 20s, wrapped in a thin hoodie, not dressed for the cold. Her face is turned slightly away, half hidden in shadow. He leans over, cranking down the passenger window. "Where are you headed?" She doesn't answer, just opens the door and slides in. The seatbelt clicks into place. Jake swallows. Something about her unsettles him. Maybe it's how silent she is. Maybe it's the way she doesn't quite look at him. He shifts into gear. The truck rumbles forward. The radio hums, static-filled. Then he hears it, a whisper, soft, right beside him. But she isn't moving her lips. Jake tightens his grip on the wheel. The road stretches ahead, an endless black vein through the trees. The whispering continues, just faint enough to not be words, just loud enough to not be his imagination. He glances at her. Her face is still turned slightly away, lost in the window's reflection. The light from the dashboard flickers across her cheek. Jake clears his throat. "You okay?" She doesn't respond. The whispers slither into his skull, not from her mouth, from everywhere. He cranks the volume on the radio. The whispers grow louder. And then, she smiles. For the first time, she speaks. Not a whisper, a voice. "You should drop me off soon." Jake's knuckles waiting around the wheel. "Yeah, sure, I'll..." He glances at the GPS. The next town is 30 miles ahead. He blinks. She's gone. The seatbelt is still buckled. The passenger door never opened. The truck swerves. He slams the brakes. His chest heaves. He whips around, scanning the cab. Empty. Nothing but the hum of the truck, the faint crackle of the radio. It was the exhaustion. It had to be. The next night, the road stretches on. Jake hasn't spoken to anyone since his last drop-off. He's not sleeping well. He won't look at the shoulder of the highway. Not that it matters, because when he blinks, she's already inside the truck. The seatbelt is already fastened. The whispers resume immediately. Jake's foot slams the gas. He doesn't care where he's going. He just needs to keep moving. She turns slowly, deliberately, and meets his gaze for the first time. Cold eyes. Wrong eyes. Her lips never move, but the whispering grows. "You should drop me off soon." Jake is losing time. The road is too long. The GPS is malfunctioning. He grips the wheel, sweating. Her voice slithers through his head. The whispers shift. They become memories. His daughter. Her voice. "You never showed up." Jake blinks. The road disappears. He is parked. The truck is off. Outside, she is waiting. She is smiling. Jake stares. His mouth opens, but his voice is gone. "You should drop me off soon." The truck is parked in front of a house. Jake's hands shake. He knows this place. A porch light flickers. A figure stands in the doorway. His daughter. Jake's chest tightens. No, she's dead. The passenger door opens. Jake steps out. The truck sits idling in the dark, empty, door ajar. The whispering fades. Jake has dropped her off, but he will never leave. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Tell me, are you still awake? Or did the whispers follow you into your dreams? If sleep won't come just yet, there are plenty more stories waiting for you. Go on, pick another. I'll be here.